Thanks everyone for tuning in for our live stream for this municipal election night. It's going to be a busy one. This one, I was telling everyone, this one's going to be a little bit different, mostly because the other election nights that we've done, we could just wait for time zones from the federal election, just start on the East Coast and wait for the time zones to move forward. And then at the provincial election, you just kind of do, riding by riding. This time we have kind of everything happening all at once. We're going to be jumping around the region, looking at the different municipalities and how the results are coming in as they're being reported. So bear with us, and hopefully this will not be too chaotic. But thanks everyone for joining us today. If you're enjoying the podcast, we love having you. We'd like to hear from you and hear what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, what we need improvement on. We listen to all of it, good and bad.
Yeah, and we're just absolutely checking that the YouTube is using the stream that we want it to use, and the link that we set up. I'm not sure that it is. Oh no, there we go. Very good. Okay, thanks everybody. Right. It seems like things are working the way they're supposed to, and I don't know any other way to do this than to have a couple of minutes of us going, is it working? Is it working? Is it working?
Yeah, this is it, folks. It's the two of us. There's no network of people behind the scenes. This is it. You are looking at the behind the scenes and the front of the scenes both at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it looks as the voting should be stopped in most places, and actually that gives us an into a quick topic of discussion while we kind of wait for votes to start, for results to start coming in. And that is that some of the voting will be carrying on for quite a bit longer in at least one place in Ontario, and I think a few places, but in Hamilton, some of their polls didn't open on time this morning. And so they actually had to declare an emergency under the Municipal Elections Act so that they could keep the polls open later. And it's been a bit of a catalogue of disasters in Hamilton. I mean, not just today, but just this whole election. That's
something that we haven't actually had a chance to really talk about on the podcast. It's something that popped up, but the simple fact that the Hamilton city clerk's office has really, going to be delicate here, I think has really dropped the ball on professionalism and just making sure that this election was flawless and just kind of the cogs move seamlessly along. It's not the case this election. I mean, what we had to start. Mail-in ballots were messed up, and I'm going to draw a blank on that one. Maybe you're more familiar with that one, Roland, as you live in Hamilton.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that for sure. Basically, the city sent out the mail-in ballots to people who requested them far too late. Late that they had a day or two to get those ballots signed and then back in the mail if they were actually going to get back to the city to be counted. Yep. And the time was so short that the city ended up saying, we actually recommend that you just take your ballot and drop it off at City Hall or one of the sort of Services Hamilton locations. And it's like, oh, seriously? That's you messed up, and you're gonna tell people to, rather than having this easier way to vote, which is the whole point. If you've got accessibility problems, or there's a whole host of reasons why you might want to mail in your ballot. You're gonna have to go down to City Hall or find a Service Hamilton location to drop off your ballot. I mean, it's really, that was failure number one. Polls not opening on time. I mean, okay, there are circumstances sometimes you can't escape, but that happened. They also managed to mail out a few hundred. I mean, I can't remember how many hundred it was. Something like 800 personal private email addresses of people who'd requested a mail-in vote.
That's a major screw up. Like that in itself. That's a fireable offense. That is, you open the city up to lawsuits, to breaches of privacy and whatnot. Like, right? If I was, and I'm sure there are many lawyers on that that email distribution list who are sitting there going, "Okay, I'm collecting my wares, and I'm going to go. Probably tomorrow. I imagine a few people are going to go down to the courtroom and just maybe file a grievance with the courts on this. It was a major screw up, and then that cap it off on election day itself to have a delay of an hour and a half almost is just really unforgivable in my honest opinion.
Yeah, it is. There's also, I mean, this is less important to voters, but it's very important to candidates. The system that candidates rely on so that they know who's voted. Mm-hmm. And you may think, hey, don't I have a secret ballot? How do they know that I voted? Well, you do have a secret ballot, but it's really helpful for candidates to know if someone who said, I will support you, has actually been to the polling place and voted or not. They don't know who you voted for. They just know that you voted or not. This is used in every election, and without it, you're really in trouble as someone. You're the E-Day chair or whatever, whoever's running your election day operation. So that was down for several hours as well. So Hamilton's just, Hamilton being Hamilton, but actually, I don't think this happened 4 years ago. It's been a difficult 4 years for the city clerk, and this comes at her door, very much so. Like whatever else you do, you got to run a good election day.
Oh yeah,
and I don't like naming city hall staff very often or picking on them, but in this case, I mean, I think serious questions have to be asked about the clerk, and whether maybe someone else should be doing that job as of fairly soon.
Like I said, any other job would definitely be a fireable offense. So we'll wait and see what happens. Maybe whatever the new council, whatever it may look like, how they will react. Like stepping outside of Hamilton, or maybe back into Hamilton. Now that the dust is settled, so to speak? Like, what do you think of the municipal election in the 905? What we've covered so far. Kind of maybe summarize the themes or the vibe that you're getting from what we've watched so far.
I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting tonight. I mean, there's been cities that have been kind of a snooze fest, and there's been cities that have really come alive. Hamilton has come alive for sure. Milton is going to be a really interesting one to watch with the mayoral race there. I think there's a good chance that Gord Krantz, who's been mayor since the 80s, since the start of the 80s, his reign could end tonight. I mean, really, I have no idea. We tend not to get polls, but Zishan Hamid seems to be been running a very active campaign against someone who's probably not running much of a campaign. The race in Oakville was a really important one to watch, and actually I know there's one campaign at least tonight that's going to be following the podcast, so welcome. We really appreciate you following the podcast so you can follow the results, and we'll be bringing you comment about that. And that's the mayoral race there is going to be an important one to watch between the Hannah campaign and the incumbent Rob Burton. It was close in 2018, and it could well be closer or a change of mayor this evening. We shall see.
I'm thinking the surprising one to look at will be the regional chair race between Andre Grabon's, Gary Carr, and Jane McKenna. Because this is the first time I've actually cared who wins the regional chair race. Like there's an actual race happening here, and that normally doesn't happen, at least not in Halton. And with three kind of candidates of note, these aren't just there's always people that you say, okay, they haven't really made a name for themselves yet so far, but these are three individuals who have a record behind them, and that they are running on that record, essentially, all three of them. So I'm eager to see how that works out. Hamilton's definitely going to be one. The other one that I got an eye on, and I'll be honest, this is partly for selfish reasons, but I am looking at the Halton Catholic trustee election. That has been a race that's kind of been building for a year now. There's been, if you haven't been aware of what's going on there, but there's been a big contentious between essentially social conservative views and more progressive views in the grassroots level, and it's kind of it's bubbled up to this election. These are two sides that are. I'm making it sound like it's a box match. I really don't want to sensationalize it, but it's the only way I know how to frame it is that both sides have been organizing and campaigning and getting their supporters mobilized and motivated, and there's a real effort there to swing this board one way or the other. How will it turn out? I honestly have no idea. So that's one I'm taking a look at. The other one that I thought was going to be. Sorry, were you going to add something?
Well, I think it's just worth mentioning that the attempt by social conservatives to get social conservatives elected to school boards, to Catholic school boards, is not just a Catholic school board thing anymore. They've also been running candidates in the public school board races, and it's time that we started paying closer attention to who we're electing to board trustees. Because I think very often people just pick a name, any name. Sometimes there seems to me that there's been some really standout candidates this time, both in Hamilton and Halton. Certainly, I can't speak further afield, who seem to me to be indicating the kind of quality ability that too often we don't see at school board level. It'd be interesting to see if they've succeeded or and it'd be very interesting to see what happens in those races.
On that note, there's articles by the CBC that highlighted this, that there is an actual momentum or movement to, quote, vote out the woke at the school board levels, not just in Halton, but Hamilton, Wentworth, York, and Peel, Dufferin Peel, at both the Catholic and the public boards as well. And I think it should be noted that these are strategies that have worked very, very well for the right-wing interest groups in the States. This is how, and they started doing this years ago, back in the 80s and 90s, influencing school boards and municipal elections to influence change there, and gradually take, kind of getting the foundation to go for larger things such as state and governor races, and then eventually Senate and House of Representatives in the States. From all intents and purposes, it appears that this is what's being copied here in Canada. They're going to try and take on local school boards, possibly even in trying to get some of the local council races and whatnot.
Certainly, in Burlington, Tim O'Brien, who's one of the one of the most awkward of the awkward squad, and when I say awkward squad, a few people have been more awkward. Ran in Ward 2 in Burlington. I don't think he's going to be anywhere close to winning. He doesn't seem to have had much of a campaign as far as I can see, unless I'm very, very mistaken. But yeah, he was running for council. That would have been a car crash in action if he got to that council. But I mean, as I say, it could be wrong, but I'm not going to sort of pull any punches in terms of saying that I think his campaign's not going anywhere, and I don't think he's going to win. And good.
Well, at least the current. I mean, we could be proven wrong. We'll leave that option always out there. But Lisa Kearns does have the advantage of incumbency. She has gotten out and kind of solidified her base. I think that her two competitors jumped in at the 11th hour, which you and I both know at the 11th hour is not the time to start campaigning.
It's very, but let's take the example of one of the people who have actually beaten an incumbent to become a councillor in Burlington, and that is Marianne Mead Ward. And she whatever you think of Marianne Mead Ward, whether she's your best mayor ever, whether she's someone who tends to provoke a variety of opinions, shall we say. she knows how to run an election and she knows how to win. And she started running 4 years before she beat the incumbent in Ward 2. She spent 4 years throwing, well, let's not say throwing mud. Let's say she spent 4 years campaigning in various guises, and by the time she ran for election, everybody knew who Marianne Mead Ward was. Everybody knew exactly what she stood for, and she won. And that's what it takes. In Ward 2 in Burlington, Lisa Kearns beat last time. I was one of the candidates last time. I was too late out of the gate. I mean, that was kind of my problem. I got sort of, if that he who hesitates is lost is very much the thing. It's like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to run. I didn't know that there was going to be a kind of race that was actually working, and and that was the result of that. Lisa Kearns was out a kind of good year ahead of me, and it pays off. So yeah, I'd be extremely surprised if that was what was going on. I'd be extremely surprised if that was to see a change. And in fact, Burlington, there's possibility there might be changes in Ward 1, maybe. I'd say Ward 1 and Ward 6 are the ones where there could be an upset. If all the incumbents are returned, I wouldn't be surprised in the least.
Yeah, I would imagine that the live or the incumbency is going to be a huge factor to play here. I really don't see how they can overcome that at this late in the game. I really don't. I don't see. So we shall see what's the. Let's just see how it turns out.
Yeah. As I say, we're just checking that our links are working. The stream is definitely up and running. We seem to have problems getting our URLs to use the correct URL when we do this. It happened last time, I think. But anyway, hopefully people find us.
We're seeing reports starting to come in. It looks like Mississauga, Bonnie Crombie is ahead by 1,000 points. 1,000 votes. Not really a shocker there, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are races in Mississauga we will be watching. But I think the race to watch in Mississauga is probably the one with in Ron Starr's ward. After the scandal, I think it's fair to call it a scandal involving him and one of the other councillors. I think that would be the most likely place to see an upset. And then, of course, then we go to Brampton and Vaughan, where, the mayoral race in Vaughan is definitely, I think, up for grabs. It's going to be a new mayor, we know that. It's a matter of whether it's Stephen Del Duca, who threw his name into the ring pretty late in the day, or I need to remind myself of the name of the other candidate who is a long-standing councillor, and ironically seemed to be running on somewhat more of a kind of liberal progressive agenda than Stephen Del Duca was.
I find it the one thing that I was a little shocked at was again, like the Andrew Horvath and the Stephen Del Duca is just jumping into the municipal ring again. I thought that was something just, I don't want to say disingenuous or frustrating, but it's just, it seemed, I'm trying to think of the right words to use in this one, but I always get a funny feeling when I see somebody jumping in without a clear reason why. And maybe it's just me, or maybe I'm overreacting, but that's my thoughts.
I mean, it kind of summed up the problems with the last provincial election, that both those, both the party leaders of the opposition were kind of on their last shot. And you feel like already kind of one eye looking over their shoulder, thinking, well, maybe I can get into another race when this is all over. Like, well, that's not what you want going into a provincial election. I mean, it's not unusual to happen. I mean, I know after the the wipeout of the Liberals in 2018, quite a few of those former ministers, there's Catherine McGarry in Guelph, as one that leaps to mind, but there are others, I believe, went into municipal government, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, when it's the actual party leaders, it's another thing. It feels a bit odd. I mean, I have to say that the election in Hamilton, coming back to Hamilton, has got pretty heated. The as it does. I mean, and that's probably a good thing. Maybe some of the heat could have lived without. But the kind of accusations being thrown about both by candidates and volunteers. However, ultimately, you got to say Andrea Horwath is a substantial, serious candidate. Bob Patina is. I will give that to him too. And Keenan Loomis has proved that he is a substantial candidate too by what he's done during this campaign, which has come from being a name that very few people would have been able to pick out of a list, to be a front runner, one of the front runners in the race for mayor of Hamilton. And that's good. I mean, I think in the end we ended up with a mayoral race that the city deserved. You can certainly criticize any of those three and say there were things that they should have done and could have done better.
Here we go. We've got, I just refreshed the Burlington page and we have results. And okay, so Mayor Marianne Mead Ward is leading with 80% of the vote. Not surprised there.
No surprise there.
Region Ward 1 Councillor Kevin Galbraith is leading with 65% of the vote. Ward 2 Councillor Lisa Kearns is leading with 76.5% of the vote so far. Mm-hmm. Ward 3, Rory Nissan is leading again with 63%. Ward 4 Councillor Shauna Stolte is leading currently with 48% of the vote. Ward 5, Paul Sharman, 59% of the vote. Ward 6, Angelo Bentivegna is leading again with 61. So basically, there's the entire council looks like they'll be staying put at the moment.
I'm almost surprised that Rory Nissan's vote has fallen as low as 60 odd percent. But he may have faced some slightly better opposition than some of the other candidates. What's the result in Ward 1? For some reason, Burlington is not letting me see the results at the moment.
They don't like you. You don't live there anymore. You're not one of us.
That must be it, yeah.
You're not one of us, Ron. I can't tell you anymore. I might lose my credentials. No, Kevin Galbraith, the Ward 1 councillor, is leading right now 65.09% of the vote. I do want to flash forward the trustee race that we were all looking at, or I was looking at. So Kirsten Kelly, who was taking on Vincent Ian Tomasi, who we discussed before on this podcast and did an article on. She's currently leading with 59.74% of the vote. Same as Trish Nichols Powell is leading for wards 3 and 6 at 64.83% of the vote, and Brenda Agnew is leading with 64.97% of the vote so far. So it appears, in terms of the HCDSB, that the progressive side seems to have won, or is at least winning their seats in Burlington at the moment.
So just go over, as for some reason Burlington will not give me, I'm on their official results page or unofficial results page, and it is saying nothing. This could be something to do with my browser, I don't know. Oh, here we go. It's their web design that's problematic.
Sure.
Does it look like Ian Tomasi is gone?
Right now, yeah, it looks like he's been voted out. Uh,
It's early days there, I guess. I mean, we're looking at total of 600 votes counted there, I guess. But
but that's we'll see how that
yeah,
unfolds. But right now, it's a pretty um,
yeah. We'll take a look at Oakville as soon as we can. Where we know that we have. Well, this is close, and it's with. Okay, we've only got 2 voting locations out of 45 in so far, but in the first 2 polls, Julia Hanna is ahead of Rob Burton at 48. Oh, it's just switched the other way. Just as I said that, it has now we have 7 voting locations, and Rob Burton is now in first. So this could be one that goes backwards and forwards all night. It's very very close between Julia Hanna and Rob Burton. That's going to be an interesting one. I think it's been. We really wanted to do an episode specifically on Oakville, and we have tried to get some kind of local news people to join us, and we didn't. We failed. So we kind of apologized to both the campaigns there that we would have in more time we would have interviewed candidates and so on, and we appreciate there was a race that really did need some attention on it. Hopefully we can make up for that this evening a little bit.
for what it's worth. They're calling that John Tory has been reelected mayor of Toronto. Not really our beat, but that's it's kind of important where the lying next to the sleeping elephant or the sleeping giant, as they say. So
Yeah. See if there's any hints on the some of the other wards in Oakville. I can't admit to being super familiar with a lot of the councillors, but some of the names will jump out at me. Yeah, I mean, basically in Oakville, it's a matter of a couple of hundred votes at the moment between the Hanna and Burton campaigns. I can get their website to work. Looks like Sean O'Meara will be elected again, although admittedly we're only dealing with a few votes at the moment. He's the town and regional council for Ward 2. Jeff Knoll, who we interviewed about 2 years ago almost, is the leader of the chair of the Police Services Board. Mm-hmm. Looks like he'll be re-elected with 76% of the vote currently. Mark Grant is currently leading Michael Reed in Ward 5. I'm not familiar with I'm sorry, we can't know every councillor, I'm afraid, or every council race. Can't really make much comment on that. However, the mayoral race certainly is an important one. Well, let's take a look at Milton and see if we can find out anything up there yet. Where the race.
I just checked the Milton unofficial results page. So far, nothing's been coming in. I don't have any.
As I say, we're going to be dealing, folks, with at least another hour before we get much out of Hamilton, because of the delays that they've had. So we're not going to have anything, any results there at all, even though most of the polls will be closed by now.
Just in Brampton, we have Patrick Brown with 61.73% of the vote, and I saw on Polling Canada they're calling that he has won. He's been reelected as mayor, which is something we thought that was going to happen. With the just Brampton, as we discussed in the podcast, Brampton is just a strange beast unto itself, um, and what have you. So I'm not entirely shocked by that. Um, just going through some of the words here in Brampton and whatnot, but yeah, I mean, Nikki Carr, who was the contender, only seemed to have about a quarter of the votes it, right now, and it's. I'll be honest. I thought there might be a bit better showing there, but clearly, like she just did not strike a chord with people in Brampton.
I, I'm not sure that striking a chord is what the elections are about up there. I mean, and I don't know enough, but it just seems to different rules apply. The behaviour of Patrick Brown, regardless of what he's done, that he's been officially retributed, told off for. I've suddenly lost the power of the English language here. Regardless of what's, officially a bad thing that he did, and what is, alleged and not proven. The way he kind of like treats Brampton as his, like, oh well, if I can't get a job anywhere else, I guess I'll be mayor here. Mm-hmm. You would think that alone would be enough to say, get knotted, mate. I don't get it. I don't get it. But I think, I mean, again, I think Patrick Brown is a master, for some reason, of motivating community groups, community associations, religious organizations, of kind of motivating them to back him, almost as kind of blocks. And I mean, it could be wrong. This would be something we should look at in more detail in the future. But yeah, I mean, there's been a media organization in Brampton kind of like just tearing into him week after week after week with highly credible allegations. I'm not saying that they're true, but serious questions are being asked about the people he's employing, why he's employing them, the way that they're behaving, the way that money's being spent, and he gets reelected like that. It's a problem, it really is.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the Oakville website here, and I'm looking at the regional chair votes, and Oakville, apparently they're leaning heavily towards Gary Carr, at least, which I'm not surprised at. I'm a little. It does say something like the big criticism towards Gary Carr and Jay McKenna were that they didn't. They just never showed up to debates or really made a strong effort to win. The fact that Gary Carr is winning strikes me more in the line of just name recognition. Same as Jay McKenna is a distant second, and Andrew Gavance is third. At least in Oakville,
sorry, carry on.
I was just saying in Oakville. It's stuff like that just does make me question. Clearly regional, like, people don't pay attention to a regional chair position here. Like it's.
I'm not sure that Gary Carr has campaigned very much at any election thus far. Now, previously, you could kind of give him a pass because no one running against him that he really needed to worry about.
Right.
I still think it's kind of insulting not to turn up at the debates. But this time, he had two good quality candidates running against him. Mm-hmm. And he still didn't seem to really leave home. There were no lawn signs that I saw. I mean, maybe there were some around. Maybe he was just very weak in Burlington. I mean, Jay McKenna had the developer votes stitched up. There's no doubt about that. Because the signs on developer-owned land were very obvious. Not really something that plays particularly well in Burlington, it has to be said, to be so obviously in the pocket of developers. But, whatever.
But here's the thing about that. You mentioned that to me before. And so you drive around town, and Jay McKenna's signs are all up on clear land that's owned by prominent developers in Burlington. I I find it there's a disconnect between the public and conviction that the people say, oh, we don't like the developers, get those dirty developers out of our town and out of our backyard, and we should, I don't want the development to happen. Yet they go and reward candidates who have strong ties to develop. Like I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you have to notice that just that disconnect, right? It's just, are you just being lazy and not actually doing the research and voting with your
I mean, it hasn't. Judging just by Oakville, so Oakville's alone of the Halton municipalities in actually posting the regional chair results. Burlington isn't doing that. It just says wait for Halton. They'll be counted in Burlington because that's where the voting is happening, but presumably they just pass the votes to the region. So we're only going on kind of one out of the three municipalities here, and it could be that Gary Carr is just. He's an Oakville guy, right? He was MPP for Oakville. There's that. Jane McKenna was MPP for Burlington. Andrea Grabentz is from Burlington. Could be that there's a very different result, so I don't want to prejudge things too much. That said, I think both of them would be wanting to do substantially better than they're showing here. And in fact, Andrea Grabentz is not that far behind Jane McKenna. If Andrea Grabentz goes past Jane McKenna or runs Jane McKenna close, given all the publicity, the free publicity that Jane McKenna was getting from the development industry, that says something. I don't think Andrea Grabentz's campaign was massively. I don't think it's difficult to get people to volunteer for regional chair campaigns because they don't have the history, they don't have people are attracted to the mayoral race, and I think she ran a good campaign. But my feeling at the outset was it was going to be an uphill battle. If she's run Jane McKenna pretty close, and Jane McKenna's basically said, "I'm not going to talk to anybody, but I'm just going to put signs everywhere." That was her campaign.
Yep.
Well, once again, that says something about Jane McKenna, I feel, massively overestimating her level of popularity and her status within the region. I said it before and I have to say it again. Andrea Grabentz, I feel, would have been much more wiser to take a run at a council seat. Maybe she didn't feel that there was an opportunity. But running for regional chair, that's really difficult to do. Okay, it's experience. It gets your name out there a bit. Maybe for a future election, this will help her. But I don't know.
I just want to go back up to Brampton for a moment because it looks right now it is appearing that Rowena Santos she's leading for her council seat. Now that name might be familiar to people listening to the podcast because she was kind of one of Patrick Brown's right-hand people on city council. She was clearly one of his allies. I think it's an interesting turn of events of just how Brampton is leading, that they seem to be kind of looking to, I don't want to say reward, but it might just be a matter of they just don't care about getting the about turfing Patrick Brown and his cabal, if you will, out of office.
Yeah. So we've got some early votes in Milton. We've got 12 polls out of 32 reporting, and Gord Krantz is ahead with 52% of the vote to Z Hamid's 42.3% of the vote. Two other candidates not really troubling the scorers, as they say if you watch cricket. If it stays like that, that's certainly the closest anybody has come to unseating Gord Krantz in a very, very long time. I still think it's pretty depressing if that is how it ends. I think it's depressing. I think it's time for Gord. Let's just not beat about the bush. I think Gord Krantz should retire gracefully after a long and very successful career. He is not a he's not a Hazel McCallion style firebrand. Let's put it that way. And I think Milton deserves someone who's bright, young, and can use an email account.
That, yeah. I mean that's just a sad state of affairs, right? That statement right there. That we wanted to have the Mayor Krantz onto this podcast. We couldn't reach him because he didn't have any social media and he didn't have an email for us to reach him at. I guess we could have called the mayor's office, but there's seems something wrong with calling the mayor's office to come in and
yeah, I mean, and we could have found his phone number and directly phoned his house. Like the phone number goes. Well, what I was led to believe is it was usually be answered by his wife, and that's fine. Not unusual for wives to be campaign volunteers. But kind of speaks to think. Again, I don't think Gord Krantz campaigned. Maybe had a bunch of people putting signs up. I don't know. I didn't get that impression. It's still. I wouldn't like to call it yet. It's 42% to 52%. And provincial election, you probably would call it. There can be differences from ward to ward in a city like Milton, where I think maybe we can't call it quite yet. But I mean, Z Hamid has done well. He seems like someone of real skill and possibility.
I just don't think it's worth calling it any race just yet. We're still waiting for a lot of results. Like we're still waiting for Hamilton to start coming. I mean, geez, we're gonna be here all night waiting for Hamilton. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
but I'm waiting for Burlington. I'm a little disappointed Burlington's not refreshing their information. Last update was at 8:15. We only had one of 29 polling, so we're still waiting for a large segment of the city to come in and clear up a lot of the votes to come in. This is part of the problem is the fact that these are municipalities. They don't have the sophistication to do quick returns.
Well, I mean, someone was saying on Twitter, one of our frequent listeners, I believe, was saying, why do we let the cities do this? All do it in their own way, with the result that some cities screw it up royally.
Hamilton.
Hamilton. Every website is slightly different. The results come out at a different speed. They use different equipment to count the votes. Why do we do this? I know, again, people will get sick of me saying, when I ran, and this will become increasingly useless as experience as it recedes further and further into the past. But the way that the electoral roll is created in municipalities is it's created by it's not created by Elections Ontario. It's created by basically the people who decide how much your house is worth when assessing how much you should pay in tax. The people who do that also organise the electoral roll. That's coming to an end, and it's actually one of the better things. If you want me to list things that the Ford government has done that are good, that's the one that I can always think of, because I do think it's a good thing. They are moving it to Elections Ontario. However, they didn't, even though they made that decision pretty soon after 2018, they couldn't get it done in time for 2022. So it will happen for the next election. The voters' lists, as they are done currently, are garbage. And they are especially garbage if you rent. The number of people missed off voters' lists in municipalities because they're just not picked up for one reason or another is appalling. Like, entire buildings would get missed out in Burlington. However, hopefully that's coming to an end. But it's an issue that deserves some mention. going back to Oakville, I don't know if there's been any update there on that race. Doesn't I mean, it certainly doesn't look like Burlington's going to throw up any real surprises.
No, it when we're still only at well, voting locations 21 out of 45 are reporting. It looks like it's still a nail biter between Rob Burton and Julia Hanna. It's 48.4% to 48.07% of the vote. Like there's just that this one's going down to the last ballot cast. I would imagine.
There's also one other municipality in Halton we might as well mention quickly, and that is Halton Hills, where there will be a new mayor because Rick Bonnet is not running for re-election. However, no results there yet that I can see. And I can't say that I know much about I don't know anything about the candidates, let's be completely honest.
Yeah, I'm just going to try and take a look at Mississauga's results. I'm not expecting...
The vote in Oakville is very, very close. So we've now got about half the polls in, and it is 48% to 48% with less than 100 votes between Rob Burton and Julia Hanna. So that is something.
Yeah, I'm just looking at in Saga here. Yeah, they it looks like Barney Crombie was reelected. Again, no surprise there.
Is there any indication of that council race?
No, I'm waiting for the votes to finally start.
It looks like the Vaughan results have been delayed. It looks like they've been extending some voting. It is very close. No, they've got 24 of 133 polls reporting Sandra Young Racco is 38%, Stephen Del Duca 37%, and there is about 500 votes between them at the moment. So that is that one's going to go down to the wire as well. It's certainly no slam dunk for Stephen Del Duca.
I want to talk about Bonnie Crombie for just for a second, because she's going to looks like she's going to become mayor again for a third term. We talked about her Mexit campaign bit, and I was honestly puzzled by that, because usually when if you're a candidate and you bring up something like that, usually it's kind of you need a ace up the sleeve to kind of just draw the attention to you and make you sound like you're a candidate of real note. Bonnie Crombie was never in risk of losing the mayorship of Mississauga. Like she pretty much, I would say she'd have to kick a baby down a football field to lose that race. So I was always puzzled as to why bring it up when it's just such a debatable and contentious. It could be a contentious issue. It's one of those things I've just been scratching my head at. I just never understood why bring it into the election at all. It never made sense to me.
I mean, both a symptom of the fact that she was in no real danger and a way to just stir up a little bit of excitement. I mean, I'm just looking at the votes here. With the reports in so far, 77% of city polls reporting Bonnie Crombie has 65,000 votes. No one else has crossed the 10,000 vote mark. In fact, no one else has more than 6,000 votes is the next closest. So, that's 10% of 65,000 less than. So yeah, I think she's just in that kind of nice position where she can say pretty much what she likes. I noticed Alvin Tedjo, who was a candidate for the Ontario Liberals in, actually looks like he's going to be elected in Ward 2. So Alvin Tedjo was a candidate, actually ran for the leadership of the Ontario Liberals, ran on a abolish the Catholic school boards ticket.
Right.
He has run in Ward 2, Mississauga, and it looks like he is fairly comfortably ahead at the moment. Chris Fonseca, who I think is an incumbent, correct me if I'm wrong, is well ahead with 5,000 votes. Carolyn Parrish, also an incumbent, I believe, winning comfortably 4,700 votes. Oh my goodness me. No, correction. Ron Starr looks like he is going to be well beaten by Joe Horneck in Ward 6. So Ron Starr is, I think we can call that one comfortably, is out and I think thoroughly deserved. Deepika Demerla, former MPP as well, comfortably winning her ward again. Bob Delaney, another another refugee from the Ontario Liberals,
Yep.
not going to win his race in Ward 9. He's losing to Martin Reid. I cannot say I'm familiar with Mr. Reid. Sue McFadden, I have a feeling, was an incumbent winning again. Yeah, so I mean, there's one change at least, and probably the most important change, the one that everybody was kind of following, is going to happen in Mississauga, and I think, I think that's a good thing.
I just want to come back to Halton. We have more. The Halton Region's finally updated their page. They've got their data from the rest of the municipalities. Well, everyone except for Halton Hills. I don't know what's taking Halton Hills a while to bring up their data, but right now Gary Carr is leading with 19,266 votes. Jay McKenna is second with 13,019, and then Andrea Bonds is a distant third at 7,505. Which again, that's a shame because the third place finisher is the one who showed up to talk to people and discuss, which is telling in itself. I am going to say this: Burlington only has one poll reporting.
I think I'm seeing more than that, Joel. I don't know. The website is not very good. I'm seeing
it's not.
The numbers I'm seeing are more than one poll.
For Burlington?
Yeah.
Where are you looking?
But their website is a bit of a mess.
Okay, because I keep trying to update and I'm only getting one.
It says last updated at 8:15.
Yes.
Is that what you're seeing? I mean, I can't actually see because the page doesn't display properly. I can't actually see.
Yeah, I don't think they. I don't think they got a whole. So there was something I do want to. Something I'm just noticing. I looked at Brampton and I'm looking at Oakville and Milton. Turnout is only about 20%. Well, in Milton is about 20%. It's appearing right now so far with all the reported ballots. And that, in turnout in Oakville, about 19.17%.
So I was looking at that as well, and my judgment is that the turnout they're counting is a percentage of, as a percentage of the whole city. So if you only got half the polls coming out, then 20% turnout could be quite good. The numbers I was seeing were suggesting to me a turnout in the 30s for most places, and that's bang in line with what we expect at municipal elections, which is appalling turnout. Let's not make any pull any punches there. Unfortunately, far too few people vote in municipal elections, and very skewed towards the elder and wealthier as well at that. And again, partly because of the way the voters list is created. Yeah,
it's. I I guess what I'm getting here is that this is more the chore election. This isn't the elections that we're seeing. None of this has been really about a need for change or a need to shake up the status quo or send a message to anyone. This is pretty much just I would dare say I think it's voter fatigue. Um, this is the third election we've had in 2 years. Um,
I don't know.
I think people
I get really annoyed about the voter fatigue. Not because it's not necessarily true, but it's like seriously, like oh, it's your third election in 2 years.
yeah,
It's like it takes you 10 minutes to vote. Really, I mean, turnout in the 30s is bang slap in the municipal election turnout
yeah.
area. It's neither higher nor lower than we'd expect. It's appalling, but it's what it always has been. It, yeah, it's depressing, but it's depressing when you see people who have no business getting elected, basically because people aren't paying attention. I mean, we see that again and again at the school board level.
Well, speaking of school board level, going back to the Halton Catholic Board, I'm looking at the Oakville results as they come in. It looks like the three candidates that were being supported as the progressive candidates are all going to lose. In fact, it appears that the endorsed candidates by the campaign life coalition and the wake up board, they are not going to win. Sorry, they look like they're in the lead. They have a sizable lead for the various trustee seats, which is it is what it is. Like Helena Carabella is leading her, right now with 70% of the vote. Like that's just a definitive win there for her. I don't know what happened necessarily, but it's it's definitely a trend that we're seeing. Again, there's deep seated money that they're looking to take. They start at the trustee and then work on that to win over various other seats. Nobody pays attention to trustee seats. They really don't, which is a shame, because those school boards hold a lot of power in terms of makeup of your neighborhoods, your tax dollars, and your housing value. Like the closer you live to a school, the greater the price of your house is going to be evaluated at, and people just don't seem to take that into account, despite the fact that this election everyone said housing and housing affordability were top of everyone's mind. They don't think about this stuff.
I mean, I'll just mention also. I mean, the results in Burlington seem to be very out of date. However, in the public school board, not the Catholic school board, in Ward 3 and 6, the race is close between Xin Yi Zhang and Nathaniel Arfin. Now, Xin Yi Zhang was the endorsed candidate of the Campaign Life Alliance in the public, not thing. Though, and Xin ran in. He ran, I believe, in Ward 5, I believe it was Ward 5 in 2018. He was one of those candidates for council who seemed to be completely wasting their time, completely unqualified and unable. And here he is, like a bad penny, running for the school board, and when it was last updated, in the lead. And with the endorsement of the Campaign Life Alliance. And if he makes it onto a school board,
Campaign Life Coalition.
Campaign Life Coalition, yeah. If he were to win, I would consider that a travesty. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candidates running in that ward. It's ridiculous, but he probably had the money to do the leaflets. This is the kind of thing that you're dealing with. Now, he may not have sought out the endorsement. I know there are candidates saying that they got the endorsement who had no idea why and are pro-choice and the rest of it. So it's not necessarily like the websites were, but there is concerted effort by not just the right, but the extreme right to infiltrate trustee races and to get either unqualified at the best, and I would put Xin Yizhang down as unqualified first and foremost, or just outright objectionable wreckers, as in the case of Tim O'Brien and Ian Tomasi. For some reason I cannot pronounce his name right. People who just destroy the trustee's ability to function efficiently for 4 years at the worst, and it shouldn't be allowed to go on like this. I mean, sure, it's democracy, but it's happening because one group of people are paying close attention to these races and seeing that they're soft targets, and the rest of us just aren't paying any attention at all. And these people are having a say in our children's education. It's a pretty poor state of affairs.
Right now, up in Vaughan, Young Rocco has taken the lead at 38.5%, and Belducas drifted to second, 37.2%. Quarter of all the polling stations reporting there, so that's going to be interesting.
I think the race has narrowed somewhat in Milton. It is getting close in Milton.
Gorkrantz is losing his lead. Now they only have three more polls to count.
Probably not enough.
I doubt that's enough to tip over, but it's definitely, again, it's one of those things that it's Gorkrantz. You're running on name recognition. People just say, kind of go in and say, "Oh, I'll just vote for Gorkrantz."
Unfortunately, I mean, if the Julia Hanna camp is still watching, and we hope they are, time is running a little bit out. It's still very close. It's less than 1,000 votes between Julia Hanna and Rob Burton. But Burton has been ahead, apart from in that very first result. There's 2 polls left to come in. Looks like the turnout will be around that 30% mark again. It's not impossible. It's less than that. It's about 500 votes, maybe 600 votes between Burton and Hanna. I mean, that race for we didn't really do it justice during the run up, but I mean, it's very much focused on development proposals in Oakville, and also I think that Rob Burton has been around for a long time, and there are people who've maybe begun to tire a little of his particular style. I mean, it tends to not be. It's literally difficult to get news out of Oakville. In all honesty, it's been. I don't know whether that's because there don't seem to be the kind of bloggers or small scale news providers that there are in Milton and Burlington. I don't know why there is. I mean, there is a good Oakville news website, but I mean, there isn't the kind of gossipy stuff that actually isn't always a good thing in Burlington, but that certainly does exist. But Burton's kind of running on his track record, and his track record has always been of trying to slow down development. And now Oakville is seeing proposals for really very tall buildings in its midtown. Now, to extent that's been the deal with the devil, if you like, that Oakville has done. It's like their downtown was never an option because of the kind of lack of connections to transit. So Midtown is where the development was always scheduled for in Oakville. I don't think when that was foreseen, the sheer scale of things now, where we're talking Toronto-sized buildings in Midtown Oakville. And once again, this is whatever you think about intensification and density and all those other things. When you build buildings that size, the locals will get uneasy. It is a somewhat provocative act when these things happen. Now, you can argue one way and the other, and I'm not going to pick sides tonight, particularly with the supporters of both sides perhaps watching. You can argue one way and the other about, well, does Rob Burton really have control over this? Does the Oakville Council really have control? And I would probably argue not nearly enough. But and this is why we come back to that point that we've made so often, is like, well, the cities need to start working together, because individually they don't have the clout to take these arguments to the province, but collectively they might do.
I got Twitter open here, and there's David Moscrop just tweeted out an interesting tweet that I thought was worth a discussion. He tweeted out, "Breaking: Cars victorious across Ontario municipal elections."
Who is victorious?
Cars.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I dare say it's interesting because the people who are seeing winning, nobody's made a big argument against stopping sprawl. It's against, they may be against development or against high rise, but nobody said, well, let's stop the sprawl. I again, going back to your argument of the candidates who we've had on this podcast, Andrew Gabros and Z Hamid, brought up interesting ideas of, like, you might have to go pick a fight with the province about getting more powers or to getting permission to do things differently, and that these people did want to do things differently than we've done in the past. The status quo is getting elected in. Nobody's looking to change that. I mean, I don't see anyone wanting to pick a fight to say, hey, let's do things. We need better results.
And again, the problem is at municipal level that candidates can't make those kind of promises. I mean, they might like to, but they can't because they don't have that power. I mean, the honest ones don't anyway. You can promise what you like, but the day after you're elected, try and do it, mate. It's going to be a struggle. I would say in Burlington, Marianne Mead Ward just got re-elected. Now, whatever you may say about Marianne Mead Ward, okay, she can be a divisive character, but she was a more pro-transit mayor than the previous. Well, the new council was a much more pro-transit council than the one that went before. Okay, all those incumbents have been re-elected. I would call that COVID threw a literal cat amongst the pigeons. I don't know what a metaphor you want to use. COVID made it very difficult to make the kind of progress that Burlington wanted to make on transit, but some of the good things that happened, like there were trials of like free transit for seniors, talking about free transit for youth, some really interesting things going on there. And because of COVID and everybody staying at home, it's kind of difficult to see any progress there, They've all just been re-elected. Hamilton has just voted against, the old council voted against extending boundaries. The new council, I would be surprised if it isn't more in that direction of pro-intensification, anti-sprawl, pro-transit. I would think it'd be moving in that direction regardless of who wins tonight. Gord Krantz, I mean, when you see Gord Krantz re-elected, it's like, well, we're not going to get much change there. But again, Gord Krantz isn't really the kind of mayor who follows any agenda per se. I mean, the council does what the council does. The shame is that Z Hamid will be lost from the council table because he was running for mayor, and it's like, well, now we've lost a good guy, So I don't think it can be characterized that simply. I mean, and things just move so damn slowly at municipal level. It's frustrating how slow, and it's frustrating how difficult it is to move incumbents. How very, for any city just to simply see the entire council re-elected suggests to me that it doesn't suggest to me that we have a good democratic system, So like Burlington, everybody re-elected for the second out of 3 elections, certainly.
Well, we're waiting to find out. Burlington's still posting that it only has 1 out of 29 polls listed. The last update was at 8:15. It's almost an hour ago.
Something's gone wrong there.
Well, that again, it goes back to our conversation at the start of this whole thing, is that this mismatch, hodgepodge, each person fend for themselves uh, approach to this is ridiculous. Like there should be a standard way to report and get information out to people uh, in time. Like this is just not a. This isn't the best way to do these things.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
I'm
they were
venting a little bit here.
touting their kind of live results. It's a shame they were trying to do something kind of cool in Burlington. They were touting their live results. They have a JSON feed, which I actually know what that is. Not many other people will. I'm looking at the JSON feed in case it was giving different results, but it's the same. So yeah, for some reason they're very, something's gone wrong with their results system. It seems. That said, I would be surprised, given the numbers that we're looking at, if anything changed there. Actually, that race for trustee in wards 3 and 6 could be, that's close. That's too close to call.
I think that based on what I'm seeing from the other Halton race seats, I think the real change is going to be at the trustee level. I'm not convinced that the candidates in question are going to see a big. They're necessarily going to win. Right now, they're leading, but it's just one poll. We're seeing a lot of these campaign life coalition candidates pulling out victories. Right now in Milton, they're saying Marvin Duarte, who's the chair of the HCDSB, has been reelected to his spot as a trustee. So that's something. But the other seat up in Milton, it looks now like Emma Murphy, who is the other, again, a campaign life coalition supported trustee. She's handedly winning that seat with 50% voting for her. So
Helena Carabella, who last week, was reprimanded. She's going to win easily in Oakville. Yeah. I'm not familiar with you with some of the names, but it looks to me. Okay, so there was one poll remaining in Oakville out of 45, and it is still within 700 votes. Julia Hanna would have to do very well in that last poll. I mean, I'm not confident to call it, but it looks like Rob Burton will probably just about sneak it by a percentage point, by 2% at present, which 2% in the context of Oakville amounts to about 700 votes. It looks like they'll fall short of a turnout of 30%, which is, again, depressing, expected. Several, at least one candidate in Oakville was acclaimed for council, which I always think is, two were acclaimed. Which is nope, 3. I mean, that says something about Oakville. How many of the council seats are just acclaimed? I mean, it's just that shouldn't happen. Well, it just shouldn't happen.
I should say we finally have results coming in from Halton Hills, so that's something. Right now, Ann Lawler's in the lead, 41.65% of the vote there. So that's that's something. Yeah, it's
just trying to get a page update from Burlington.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Burlington. Burlington has somehow dropped the ball on their website, and we have not had an update since an hour ago. Everyone else seems to have at least. It looks like we're going to get a pretty definitive results coming in from everyone else, and at least by 9:30 we'll know who our mayors and council will be. Not in Burlington though. We don't know.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's anything else going on there.
If anyone's watching this live stream and your webpage is refreshing and you're able to tell us what's going on in Burlington, let us know.
Yeah,
because it's a little ridiculous that we can't figure this. We don't know. Like, this is, yeah, we're an hour into this. It's ridiculous.
Just while we're waiting, we might as well just make a quick mention of a couple of candidates in Burlington according to the results we have, which seem to be very out of date. Lisa Kearns winning easily, Rory Nissan winning easily. Shauna Stolte had more people running against her, partly the product of the fact that she said for a while that she wasn't gonna run again, and then she did. And I have to kind of say with Shauna Stolte that she's kind of a friend. I mean, I kind of just have to admit that. We didn't speak about her at any point during this campaign, and it looks like, unless something extraordinary happens, it looks like she'll win handily, but not with the kind of majority that other councillors have. There seem to be some candidates in that ward that were really going pretty hard. A former campaign manager of Rory Nissan, which shows you the kind of collegiality that council has, I guess. And also the fact that, so Stolte was faced with a couple of reports to the integrity commissioner, and that may have had an effect, although I think it may have brought as many votes to her as it took away. Paul Sharman, another former guest, who we've spoken about quite a bit. As the years goes by, he seems to win more comfortably rather than less comfortably. His first election back in about, I don't know if it was before 2010 or after, he snuck it, but a couple of votes in an election where everybody got 1,000 votes each, yeah, it's pretty comfortable these days. Tim O'Brien, the former Catholic school board trustee, looks like he's going to, not really bother the count very much.
Well, we don't know. The thing is, we don't know. I mean, we only have one of 29. I'm honestly puzzled by this. Why do we not have an update on the Burlington website?
Yeah, you would think they would be at least saying what's going on if there's a delay. See if the city clerk is a frequent Twitterer. Let's see if he's had time to say anything.
Give us a minute, folks. We're trying to track down what's going on in Burlington. This is...
I mean, we should be getting results from Hamilton around now too. I mean, they were delayed for an hour and a half. I'm not really sure what reason there would be for the counts not to be coming through in Hamilton. And we should take another look at Vaughan, I think, as an election that is definitely I mean, really, there seems to be some, and Mississauga is an example of this. Mississauga seem to get their complete results in very quickly and efficiently on a page that just works. And as, at the other end of the scale, Burlington and Hamilton are not having a great evening. Okay, still early days in Vaughan. 56 of 133 polls reporting. Sandra Young Racco is at 37.98%. Stephen Del Duca is at 37.47%. And there is about 150 votes between them. My goodness.
Sorry, say that. So I'm sorry.
So the race in Vaughan is
Yes.
extremely close. I mean, it is a toss-up at the moment.
Right. That's the vibe that I'm getting on Twitter. Looking at that, it looks like a very. It's going to be a close one for sure.
Yeah.
I would find it interesting if Stephen Del Duca loses. Would that be an indication? Would it be an indictment of him as a viable candidate? Do people actually want him as a candidate, or two? Is it a matter of we kind of brought this on? The idea of Andrea Horwath, former leader of the NDP, and Stephen Del Duca, former leader of the Liberals, losing, and then saying, "Well, I don't know what else to do with my life. I'm a perpetual politician, so therefore I got to run for something. Mayor's coming up, I'll throw my hat in the ring for that." And we mentioned Stephen Del Duca's campaign platform, pseudo platform, how uninspiring we thought it was when we read it. Andrea Horwath, we didn't really see any campaign platform of substance coming out of her campaign. Both seem to be running on a campaign of name recognition as opposed to an actual this is my vision. Part of me chalk it up to the fact that they were focusing on the provincial issues rather than municipal issues. So I'll give them credit for that, but again, just because you lost one job doesn't mean, well, I'm just going to throw my hats and just show up for this job and hopefully I'll get it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think being the leader of a party is a great preparation for a mayoral race, but I guess you wouldn't be running if you hadn't just had a bit of a rough go of it in a provincial race.
Right.
If you'd done well, you'd probably be looking either at being the premier or having another crack at the premier's race. I mean, it certainly says something that, okay, Stephen Del Duca may be the mayor of Vaughan tomorrow, in which case he'll probably say, well, I've had a decent year when it's all done and dusted. But, he couldn't win his own seat in Vaughan. Vaughan is clearly not overwhelmed by his appeal to such a large degree that they're just voting for him in droves. It's very close. I have to say that judging purely by what I saw of the two campaigns from the two candidates, I would have voted for the other guy. I'm saying this as someone who used to be an Ontario Liberal. He was running on a very right of centre kind of platform. Very disappointing, kind of giving anybody who wondered maybe if they should have voted a different way in the last provincial election probably all the reason to go, no, I voted just about right when I didn't vote for that guy. I mean, very, very disappointing. And well, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean,
I just find that both of those candidates I thought brought rather uninspired and rather dispassionate campaigns to their cities. It's a real shame and a real disingenuous article on both their parts to not put a real fight for it, or to really dive in. to what the issues are. Um, it's just a shame. I mean, we'll see what happens. The question will be the momentum. Here's the other thing that you can say is that at least in Vaughan, if Del Duca does manage to come back from behind and win, this isn't a definitive win. This isn't a definitive. People have declared, full-heartedly they endorse my vision of Vaughan. To me, it says you got to work hard to win people back.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I thought it was amazing the other day, just going further afield for a while, that when Lynn Truss resigned in Britain after the shortest prime ministership in history, she started her resignation speech with, "We delivered on something." It's like, you were there for 2 weeks, you delivered chaos. Sure, you didn't deliver. And it's like, they still can't get it through. I mean, there used to be a time when people would, I remember back in sort of 97 when Conservatives who'd been in for an ever and a day just got absolutely destroyed by the incoming Tony Blair government. And the Tories were like, yeah, we really took a beating, and we deserved it. And, there was, for one night only, there was complete honesty from politicians. And now you don't even get that one night only. Someone will still try and spin their career as a success after the cataclysmic failure. And, I mean, it's kind of that we're seeing in Vaughan, like if Del Duca wins by 3 votes, and it may be that close, judging by what's going on right now, it's under 100 votes at the moment. It is, my goodness, it is 102 votes splitting the 2 candidates in Vaughan right now. He'll no doubt say that it's a victory for the little guy or something. I don't know what he'll, and yet it's clearly not. It's clearly completely divided. And if you tot it up, the second choices of a lot of the people who are running, there's another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's another sort of 10,000 votes out there that have gone to various other candidates that might have gone who knows where under a ranked ballot system. So yeah, it'd be nice if it would be nice if to have a little bit more honesty.
We just got an update in Vaughan, and there's 0.05% difference between Sandra Young-Ryle and Stephen Del Duca.
Yeah,
this might be the actual race to watch. Folks.
We're down to
I'll be honest.
25 votes. Whoa.
Jeez. This is This
could be recount country that we're getting into now.
This is grounds for a recount. I mean, they only have 70 or 133 polls coming in so far, but yeah, it's right now. This is not looking like a clear slam dunk for either Sandra or Stephen. Again, turnout right now is sitting about 22%.
Yeah, I'm going to make a guess that that's 22% with about half the polls in, which would actually give you a turnout of about 40%, which would be good, which would actually be very good for most cities. So maybe I'm miscalculating this, but 70, there's 133 polls, 70 is just over half. If I'm calculating this right, which I think I am, that would end up at about a 40% turnout. Okay, and we've got some early results in Hamilton. Oh, close. It is close in Hamilton too.
That is wow. Okay, so folks, if you're not watching, so Andrea Horvath is currently leading at 43.77%. Keenan Loomis second place at 41.99%, and only 4 polls reporting. Rob Martinez at a distant 9.86. That's a why do you bother showing that number? I do want to point just so while we were chatting, I did email the city of Burlington to find out what's going on with their results. Here's the official email I got back. Hi Joel, results will be provided as soon as possible throughout the evening as votes have to be counted across our polls, obviously. As you know, official election results will be declared by Burlington's city clerk the week of October 24th.
Okay, that's just yeah.
That tells me that there's probably a hiccup somewhere, and they're gonna. We might not know what happened in Burlington for later this week. I guess
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
We'll take a look at some of the early results for the wards in Hamilton, because there's some really interesting races there. Ward 1, Maureen Wilson is going to win handily. She's currently leading with 76%. No surprise there. Ward 2, fight of the ages between Cameron and Kretsch, the former chair of the LGBTQ plus advisory committee, who was booted off that committee for ridiculous reasons by the city. He is currently leading Jason Farr, who's had a very bad year, by 52% to 28%. I mean, still early results, too early to call, but from these early numbers, Kretsch is going to win comfortably. No results showing in Ward 3 yet, or 4. Ward 5, a large number of candidates, I have to say, to not being very familiar with the candidates in Ward 5. Matt Francis is the current leader. Most other polls with no results yet.
I would say if you go to Ward 14, Kojo Damte, who we had on the podcast last 2 weeks ago, is currently leading with 26.66% of the vote there. So we'll see. Keep an eye on that as well. I do want to go to leaving Hamilton for a second. Milton's, all their polls have reported, and we can safely say that Gord Krantz has been reelected as mayor of Hamilton with only 49.51% of the vote. Z Hamid was a close second at 45%.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people, I think the vast majority of people who are active in politics in Oakville in any shape or form will be very disappointed with that result.
In Milton, not Oakville.
Sorry, in Milton, yeah. I think that, I think Z Hamid should be someone who stays in politics in whatever way, and I would like to see him running for, whether it's mayor again in 4 years, whether it's at other levels of government. This seems to me to be someone who can contribute, is my bias showing? I guess it probably is. Sorry. Final poll from Oakville is still not in. Still very close there, although edging towards Rob Burton. I'm sure the Hannah volunteers will be, biting their nails, but feeling rather depressed that it would be so close for a second time. I mean, extremely close.
Speaking of biting your nails, up at Vaughan, Stephen Del Duca has retaken the lead. That is a...
But by 30 votes?
Wow. It's a technical lead.
Yeah.
That one's going to be definite.
So some really close races going on. I mean, I have to say that still don't have a proper. Do we have the full result from Halton?
At the regional level?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's take a look.
I'm not expecting a change in the order there, but
I'm not seeing. It's the order. It's very much looking as if Gary Carr is going to be reelected there, with Jay McKenna a distant second and Andrew Gerbonks a very, very distant third. We still only have one of 29 polls reporting in Burlington, so that might that might change drastically depending on how Burlington goes. But I mean, like here's the thing: Milton and Oakville pretty much have all their polls reported. Halton Hills they've already got up to about just shy of half their polls elected finally or reported finally. Burlington's still stuck at one of 29.
I mean, again, just memory from 4 years ago. 4 years ago, the results from Burlington came in just as fast as they're coming in from everywhere else. Within half an hour, I knew that I'd lost because I had all three polls in my ward had responded. Maybe not half an hour, maybe an hour, but so something is not right there with just one poll reporting. That makes no sense at all, and it's kind of rude of them to give you such a blow off of a response. To be honest, something is up.
Oakville has all their polls in. Rob Burton has been reelected with 49.24% of the vote. Julia Hanna is a close second, 47.06%.
Yeah, not probably close enough for a recount or anything like that. That doesn't seem very likely. I mean, hard fought race. It's gonna. I mean, those are the tough ones to lose when you're that close and you've been never underestimate the sheer amount of work that people put into election campaigns. People put their heart and souls into them, and when you come out on the wrong side of the result, it just gets harder the closer you are to winning. That's for sure.
Well, you and I both worked on losing campaigns. I mean, I chaired one. You don't get how you put so much effort in, and you really don't know how it's going until election day. You think you're doing well. You think you got a certain you're hearing good things at the door and all that, and then the day comes and you're not able to kind of push over that final hump, and it eats at you. But Juliana does not have a. She's gonna do the shoulda, woulda, coulda for the next 6 months, wondering, I should have knocked on that door. I should talk to this person. I should have got this. And here's the thing: your biggest adversary was Rob Burton, who's been there for so long. Like he's had a huge incumbency. It's hard to knock that off if there's not an appetite for change there.
I mean, I think it's worth saying that the Oakville really needs to catch up some of the other municipalities in the 905 in terms of having a really active kind of local government news scene. And to an extent, we do our best, but we can't. The two of us certainly are not experts in every aspect of every municipality in the 905. We really only go as far as Vaughan at the moment. We haven't talked about,
Markham or Richmond Hill.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about those guys. And Oakville, we would very much like to see more coverage of. And I think when you want to, we're seeing, but to an extent, we're not seeing it in Burlington this election, but we saw it the last election that there was a great deal of kind of engagement in local news, and that hasn't gone away, even though this election in Burlington is not a particularly exciting one. The involvement is still there, and it's healthy. For whatever reason, Oakville Council doesn't seem to grab a lot of headlines, and you may think that's a good thing or a bad thing, but for an incumbent, it's a fantastic thing, because it means no one's bitching. I don't believe that Oakville is immune to the things that other cities have, but it doesn't seem to get the coverage.
Cameron Kretsch has just posted this on Twitter, saying that, quote, "I'm overjoyed to announce that I will be the next Ward 2 city councillor. This was a team effort over 2 campaigns. I couldn't have done this alone. Here's to better days ahead for all of us. More tomorrow. Love you. #Ham aunt." Now I'm looking at the Hamilton website. The votes are still coming out. Maybe his scrutineers have done the math and they're able to make that statement. But right now, the official count, he is in the lead, 49.02% of the vote, and Jason Farr is a distant second at 34%.
Another important race. I mean, Jason Farr, I mean, he's been councillor for quite a long time. He ran in Stony Creek for the provincial Liberals and was destroyed. It's been a very bad year for him, and he was the not only the chair of the Hamilton Housing Commission, and excuse me, I'm getting the name wrong, but also the kind of poster boy for being as vile and unpleasant to people, to homeless people, during the COVID crisis. People living in tents in the city. Just I'm gonna say it as well on this one. Good riddance to Jason Farr, another Hamilton Liberal who deserves to go, along with Bob Brattina and the people behind Brattina. There's a little clique of these guys who've just run in every election for ages, and they're getting, they're losing the successes that they had. Jason Farr was one of their guys, and he's gone. Good for Cameron Cretch. I think he'll be a good councillor. In Ward 3, Narinda Nan looks like is early days. There's only it's too early to really call, but she's at 53% to Walter Furland's 230. Walter Furland was certainly making a lot of noise. Had the endorsement of Jason Farr. It's unusual for an incumbent to go out against another incumbent, but Jason Farr did. I was in Narinda Nan's ward yesterday. I was actually at the soccer match, and there seemed to be some vandalism and stickers on shop windows and things that were. Well, my assumption is that that there were racial overtones to that, as Narinda Nan being a visible minority. So if that number is representative, and it is early days, it looks like she's going to be comfortably re-elected, and I would say deservedly so. She certainly did nothing as councillor that stood out to me as deserving of not being re-elected. So certainly some of the other wards, not really terribly familiar with.
Linda, I should point out Ward 5, Linda Lukasik, who is one of the activists candidates that we kind of focused on for a bit. She's not. It doesn't appear that she's in a position necessarily to win just yet. Where Matt Francis is leading that race at 30%. She's in second at 18%. But again, still waiting for many more polls to come in.
A face that another face that's very familiar to Joel and I is Ted McMeekin, who is running in Ward 15, which is the Flamborough Dundas ward. Former MPP for Flamborough Dundas, Hamilton Westdale, Ancaster Dundas, the various different names at various points. Former mayor of Dundas before amalgamation. He's currently leading. It's very early days, but he's leading with 561 votes to 449. Difficult to say that Ted McMeekin is a young gun, but he is a progressive voice, I would say. We'll just leave that one without any comment at the moment. But at the moment, he's in the lead.
Mm-hmm. We're still right now for the Hamilton mayor. I mean, Andrea Horvath is still leading that only by about 2%. Just about 400, just about 460 votes. Is all with only 22 polls of 246 reporting. Like this is, I'm suspecting this is going to. Keenan Loomis is just going to be nipping at her heels all night long as we keep going.
Ward 13, I mean, incumbent Arlene Vanderbeek is currently in second place by quite a long way to Alex Wilson. I can't say I know much about Alex Wilson. I believe he had the kind of union backing. Arlene Vanderbeek, not the most prominent member of Hamilton Council. Not the most. I mean, difficult to compete with some of the people on that old council who aren't coming back, thankfully. But anyway, Alice Wilson looks like he might be the councillor. So it looks like there's going to be quite a bit of change, even in wards where, even in wards where it's not a matter of there definitely being change already because the incumbent is gone.
Absolutely. It's what strikes me is I'm looking at this and I'm seeing like Bob Bertina is a very, very distant third in this, and
it looks like Maria Pearson is also currently in third place. That's another incumbent in Hamilton who is losing at present. Losing to Jeff Beattie. Ward 10, I believe, is Stony Creek. Don't hold me to that. Somewhat surprising there. In third place behind Jeff Beattie and Louis Milojevic.
Sorry, folks. We're just trying to reading and processing at the same time as we're starting to get these results. And so please do bear with us. We're just
Brad Clark, incumbent, looks like he's going to win easily. John Paul Danko, incumbent, looks like he's going to win very easily. Esther Pauls, Scott Duval, no polls reporting yet. Tom Jackson, definitely one of the old guard guys, looks like he's going to win very, very easily. But will I suspect, be more of an outlier on council than being than he was before. I think that's pretty much it. The ones we've covered. I can't. And a lot of these votes are really too early to make any clear judgment on.
I am going to go back to the mayor's race because right now Andrew Horvath is leading by 0.1% of the vote.
Wow.
This is not a.
It's not over yet.
This is not over by any stretch of the imagination. This is. Like, yeah, okay, now it's updated. Andrew Horvath is 41.73. Keenan Loomis is 41.37. This might be this and Vaughn, folks. This might be going back and forth. I'm looking at Vaughn. Del Duca's leading 37.8 to Sandra Young Rocco's 37.2% of the vote. So this is yeah.
Wow. This is to be honest,
this is what we live for, folks.
to our millions of viewers. And our viewership has gone up by at least 25% in the last half hour. This is a lot more fun than most provincial or federal elections are, because there's some really close races, and races that, to be honest, really matter. That will change cities considerably.
Here's the thing with this Hamilton result. I'm not predicting. I mean, I right now I can't predict anything right now. The numbers for mayor are too close. But what it's going to be hard for Andrew, for whoever is winning, to say I've got a clear mandate from the people to win. This isn't like this is to me. This doesn't strike me as a clear, definitive. Yep, we just want you back in. There is an appetite of people who right now I'm looking at these numbers and saying they want change. They didn't want. They wanted just a brand new face in there because they were tired of the same kind of rotating door of familiar faces going into the halls of power. This is the lesson I think we need to take away from this election, honestly. And like Keenan Loomis may come back and win this. The numbers are just so close. We don't know yet. But whoever wins this is really going to have to do a gut check and just say, okay, I can't assume I've got a mandate to run roughshod over my opponents, which is a criticism of the past council, was that it was very much our way or the highway approach to things. And
I wouldn't necessarily say that of Fred Eisenberger, though. I mean, Fred Eisenberger was
okay.
You know,
I'll give you that, but the council as a whole, because here's the thing: right now, our councils are pretty much just a group of people in a room. The mayor is no more powerful than the counselor sitting next to them. So the council as a whole was very much our way or the highway approach to concerns from the public, citizens groups, and the various interests that are out there. This tells me that those interests they're not happy with being shunned to the side. They're putting their support either behind Andrea Horvath or Keenan Loomis. Clearly, whoever wins this election tonight, is the mandate here is you've got to reach out to the other side and get them on board. Because if you don't, you're going to be my bet is you're going to be turfed out in 4 years.
I'm not sure if municipal politics works that way, and that it's because they're not parties. You know, yes and no. I mean,
Not
basically,
parties,
the day after an election, a mayor is a party of one again. There's no guarantee that the people. I mean, ask Marilyn Meany Ward about how many of her volunteers from 2018 were helping her out this year. Very few. That hasn't harmed her chances of re-election one bit. I mean, I do think whoever wins, they need to be. Mayors do have to be team players, and they do have to be able to work in a the one mayor I can pick out whose council frankly adored him was Walter Malkovich in Burlington. The members of that council loved him. People in Burlington generally seemed to love him, and it just because he was a really nice guy, and he was someone who was an NDPer whose protege went on to run and win for the Conservatives. So he was someone who could reach across party lines. And that is kind of the job that you have to do as mayor. And that's kind of been the question about Andrea Horvath is that really her style, you know? But we don't know if that's Keenan Loomis' style either, to be honest. And Andrea Horvath's reputation as a councillor, when she was a councillor in Hamilton, was, from the people who knew her at that time, seems to have been very good. Everybody needs to learn on the job ultimately, but certainly anybody who thinks, even if you win with 90% vote, if you come in thinking that you're king of the castle and you can do what you like in any city hall in Ontario, you're going to be very much mistaken.
I'm just going to point this out again. The fact that Burlington only has one poll of 29 reporting, and we're coming up on 10 o'clock, is getting national attention. Polling Canada just tweeted out, Burlington is sitting at 1 of 29 polls reporting. You good, Burlington?
Their reply to your email is not good enough.
No, there's I don't know. I mean, I don't know from the email what happened, but that tells me there's a hiccup somewhere in the reporting process.
That's a big hiccup at this point.
Part of me wonders. The issue might be Burlington had online voting, so you could go to a website. Like you were mailed out a sheet of paper. You could go into a website, punch in your information, and you get basically like an electronic ballot emailed to you, which you could go and fill out and submit. I used it to cast my vote. I'm wondering now if I might regret that, and that might be some kind of technical glitch.
It's the third election they've had it. I mean,
that's the thing. I did it the previous elections, and I didn't really have an issue with it. So I said, "This is great. This time around, I'll do it this way." I'm wondering, perhaps I'm just spitballing here. I have no information to back up that claim, folks. So I'm don't quote me on it. But this is very peculiar. There's something very strange happening there. That is they got to come in and fix this. They got to get we got to find out who's going to be mayor in Burlington.
I'm live tweeting people.
Tell them to watch.
Yeah.
It looks like Stephen Del Duca and Sandra Young Rocco's race. It appears that Del Duca is starting to pull away a bit, not by much. I think he's leading by about 1% now, and up in Vaughan. So we're keeping an eye on that one and on Hamilton for right now to see how this goes. Here's a question. Like, let's. It's gonna be a while before we get all the results in necessarily. So let's take a step back. What's looking at all the races across the 905 that we've seen? What's your take on it so far? What's the vibe that you're getting from the various municipalities that we're seeing so far?
It's a good news, bad news election. I mean, I think Hamilton's election, regardless of who wins the mayoral race, is of a fundamentally different council. I think. I mean, some of the new names I frankly know nothing about, whether they'll be good, bad, or indifferent, but they'll be different, which is good. But there are some really good people who have been elected. The people who were worth keeping from the previous council have been kept. I think that's really positive, regardless of who the mayor is. It really is. The mayor is just one. That is honestly, I mean, who knows if it's going to stay that way with the kind of half-assed, make it up as you go, strong mayor system that the province is going to inflict on us. But
Keenan Loomis just took the lead.
Sorry?
Keenan Loomis just took the lead in Hamilton.
Goodness. Yeah, I mean that.
About a 350, actually 350 vote lead now.
Okay, and that's about not even a third of the polls returned, though. Well, no, slightly more than that, maybe.
Sorry, I just thought I'd let our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I think Keenan Loomis, regardless of the result today, I think Keenan Loomis deserves credit for running a really good campaign, a campaign that seemed to me to be of substance. You might not like what he was selling, but he wasn't hiding it. The stuff was out there, what he stood for. Andrea Horwath, I think we know what we feel we're getting with Andrea Horwath, but she didn't necessarily make it very clear in her pronouncements. All of the leading three said some dumb things at various points. But I did feel that Andrea Horwath's, you're not from here kind of comment, and she didn't even kind of have the decency to acknowledge that having a go at her for that was a fair thing to have a go at her about. And and I feel as an immigrant, albeit the kind of immigrant who people don't object to, that using that kind of language about people who are newer in the city it's just not on. It's like to throw that at someone. When you throw that at someone, you're throwing it at thousands and thousands of other people who are new in the city as well, and it's crappy politics. Bob Brattina, his campaign was all negativity, all nastiness, to be honest. Once again, I mean, Vito Scro, front and center, were in the most recent sort of interview in The Spectator. Vito Scro, who lost 4 years ago, who ran on stopping LRT. Vito Scro, who's run provincially, who's run federally, who's lost and lost and lost and lost. The people around Vito Scro, who for some reason think they run the Liberal Party in Hamilton and yet deliver failure at every turn, have failed again. Maybe people in Hamilton should now wake up, and maybe the Liberals in Hamilton, if there's any of them left, should wake up, kick those assholes out of your party. They're not liberals, they're Tories. Let them go and be members of the Tory party if they want to be. Um, they will be distraught and upset if they see Ted McMeekin winning, because Ted McMeekin is actually progressive. They hate Ted McMeekin. If he's won in Ward 15, Vito Scrow will be hopping mad. That's the kind of progressive liberals we're dealing with over there. And by the look of it, Ted will win fairly comfortably. Not completely comfortably, but it looks like he's going to win. That bunch of morons behind the Bettina camp need to look at the evidence of their electoral careers. I haven't won anything either. Who the hell am I to talk? But I would say if I'd lost as many elections as those idiots have lost, I would quit and go and do something else with my time. And they'll be doing the city of Hamilton a favour if they do that.
Well, I'm looking at the results here, and I say the results speak for themselves. I mean, they can keep doing what they want to do. Bob Bertina is nowhere near going to be able to win this thing. There's no path forward for him to win. He's done.
No,
I do find it's interesting that Keenan Loomis, though, his lead is growing. He's now about not quite 1,000 vote lead now, but it's creeping up there.
He's ahead by 1% or 2%. My math isn't good enough to work that out.
He's all right, by about 1%, just under 1%, and whatnot. The other place I would go to is back up to Vaughan. Stephen Del Duca is extending his lead over Sandra Young or Racco by almost 2. I would say probably about a good percentage, maybe 2.5%. But yeah, that lead is steadily growing as well.
It's too early to call, but it's not looking good for Sandra Young Racco, I think.
That's right.
I'd probably say. I think that's a shame. I think Stephen Del Duca ran a crappy campaign with a bunch of conservative policies. Sandra Young Racco is running on the kind of policies that Stephen Del Duca championed as transportation minister for about a decade. For goodness sake. But looks like he's going to be rewarded for that. I know. There you go. I think that's a shame. It's and Burlington can't count. I don't know what else to say about them. I mean, it's an embarrassment now. So the city clerks in Hamilton and Burlington, and the city clerk in Burlington seems to attract a certain amount of criticism. Okay, we actually have a comment from Nick on YouTube saying the city has all the ballots, numbers in soon, he says.
Okay,
maybe they decided to count centrally, but in that case, why did one poll come out so quickly? I don't know. It's different from how it was done before.
I wonder if that might have been the online ballots.
Maybe right. That could make sense.
If
maybe
those were the online ballots, that would make sense of who.
Okay.
So we will see how that would unfold.
Okay, well, maybe they've decided to count everything centrally. I don't know why they would do that. It's not how things are done at other elections. It's something I'm used to from the UK, where results take about 4 hours.
You're supposed to come out. If you go cast your ballot in person, they have the Scantron sheets, right, where you put it into the scanner. So the idea is the doors close, you hit tabulate, and you get a printout of candidate A, B, C, and D, how many you got, and then you're supposed to call into the city clerk's office, and they tabulate everything up. In the end, something happened here, and I think that it's worth. I'm hoping that there's a official statement put out soon, uh, to explain what the holdup is, because the risk is you start undermining the legitimacy of the election if this goes on too long. Like what exactly is the holdup for this?
Friend of the podcast, Shannon Gillies, has said she thinks the abacus must be broken. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
It's not an abacus, Shannon. It's the hamster. The hamster is trying to fall off the wheel. Get your stories right.
The hamster runs the abacus.
Get your facts straight, Shannon. We're trying to do serious journalism here. I kid.
Well, okay, so apparently, actually, Andrew Drummond, who was a candidate for the NDP in the last provincial election, says he's heard that a single poll, stayed open very late, and that's delayed the results for the whole city. That's possible. I mean, that's basically what happened in Hamilton. But Hamilton said what was going on, so Burlington.
Yeah,
Hamilton's actually done better than you, and that's pretty difficult to.
You've got to be open and transparent with this. Andrew Horvath seems to be going. Speaking of Hamilton, let's go back here. Andrew Horvath seems to be tightening up the lead, or sorry, nipping at Keane Loomis's heels now. She is. Keane Loomis is leading with 41.32% of the vote. Andrea Horvath has a flat 41% of the vote.
300 votes in it, almost exactly 300 votes in it.
Yeah,
with with 94,000 ballots counted. Just to confirm, Cameron Kretsch looks like he's getting about half the votes cast in his ward. I don't think we need to go back over those ones. They're obvious.
Ward 14 with Kojo Damte has been a back and forth between Kojo Damte and Mike Spadafora, going back and forth. That is right now. Kojo Damte is leading for Ward 14, but just by a hair. I'm
11 votes.
Yeah, 11 votes. So it is going to be a close one, folks. That's for sure tonight.
Meekin is leading by about 300 votes. Probably comfortable enough to call that one. Vanderbeek is gone, I think. Esther Pauls and Scott Duval, I don't even know much about Esther Pauls, and she's the incumbent. She's currently in the lead, but not by much. Tom Jackson has been re-elected. I don't know what Ward 6's problem is. And I think we can confidently say that Maria Pearson is gone as well.
Here we go. We have an actual statement now from the from Burlington. Hang on. Okay, so I have an email here from Burlington. The city's voting vendor is experiencing technical difficulties, which is causing a delay in reporting the unofficial results online. We apologize for any inconvenience. So yeah, the company, I guess that they've
got Donald Trump out the back with a shovel, putting holes into a garbage can or something. I don't know what.
I'm just asking if this will be remedied by tonight. And is there any worries about the integrity of the vote? You're hearing journalism in real time, folks.
I shouldn't laugh. We're real journalists. We're grown-ups.
Well,
Hey,
but
we're more grown up than some people. I got to mention.
I'm wondering if she's listening to us as we're chatting. Oh, 429.
Well, hey, literally, I think we should put that out on our Twitter as well.
So 4 of 29 votes are in. We're looking here, not really seeing a huge change here so far. Da, da, da.
Okay, so they've got
Nothing changed from last time.
I'm not really expecting any change. Is there any race that's even close?
The only race I would consider would be a real in Burlington that I would be I'd want to know I'd be taking an eye on would be for Ward 4 with Shauna Stolte, only because she has she declared her intentions rather late in the game to rerun, and Olivia Duke has been quite fierce on campaigning in that ward, so that I'd be curious about.
It's looking like with Stolte has 2,000 votes.
It is looking like she's going to have a decent lead.
Yeah, and I think Ward 4 might actually have more results in than some of the other wards. There seem to be a few candidates really going quite hard after Shauna Stolte. Olivia Duke seemed to have the developers' support as well, in that her signs seem to be on private land quite often, although there were quite a lot of signs on private land. I don't know. I haven't been speaking to Shauna Stolte. I have no inside knowledge at all.
They're all on like your strip mall plaza.
Yeah.
A lot of developer land that seem to be where they are. So.
Again, kind of too early to really say anything, but Xin Yi Zhang is ahead still in the Halton trustee race in wards 3 and 6 in Burlington. I'm only mentioning that because I can't quite believe that anybody would elect that candidate to anything.
Well, here's the problem: is you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candidates in that ward. That Xin Yijiang is leading with 21.84% of the vote. The close second place is 19.16%, followed by 8.17, then followed by 18.17, then 18.06. What you're getting is a vote split there. You're getting is the trustee that this person is coming up the middle, because it's what happened in 2018 with me. You had 14 people running for 3 seats. It's not that hard to win that way, and that's what's happening here with trustee ward 3 and 6.
Yep.
Going back to Hamilton. Update, folks. Andrea Horvath has retaken the lead. She's leading the election or the vote with just 0.24% of the vote. So again, not a sizable lead, but it's a lead nonetheless. I suspect we're going to see a lot more of this back and forth for the next little bit.
Yeah, certainly too close to call. As is the race in Ward 14, Kojay Damptey and Mike Spadafora. Ted Mimikin, I think, has safely won that one. Craig Cassar, who I know nothing about, seems to be winning in his ward, which is Ward 12, which is a no incumbent race. He has almost 40% of the vote. I cannot say that I know any of the candidates there.
I'm going to say Linda Lukasik in Ward 5 is a distant second with 16.36% of the vote there. Matt Francis is leading with 43.84%. I'm not sure where she's going to make that up to eke that out. But I'm looking at that race, and again, it's the same issue of you have 11 candidates running for one seat. The odds are stacked against you. Necessarily. I
It
mean,
can become
I don't know.
a real sort of circus at that point, and
Yeah,
and a toss up as to who wins. I mean, it
it's
happened in
hard.
Burlington in Ward One as well last time, and that's kind of how Kelvin Galbraith kind of won
Right.
because no one else did. You know, I mean, but there were some really good candidates running, but there was just too many people really. Um, Looks like Alex Johnson, who is one of the trustees, is who was involved in the kind of racism allegations in Hamilton Wentworth School Board, is out. Looks like Eric. Well, it's too close to call really, but someone else looks like they're going to win there. Some of the other trustee races I can't really speak to with any confidence. I know in Ward 1, Elizabeth Wong is going to win very easily, which says something. She's actually had, for a school trustee race, she has had a lot of signs and kind of had, I think, had the kind of endorsement of the unions and the I don't want to say the NDP as if the NDP are kind of the NDP were backing her, I think. Anyway, she's won comfortably. And other races I really can't speak to. I'm trying to remember if I think the incumbent who got into the most trouble in the racism problem in Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, I don't think has run again, so she is gone. Carol Pakin Miller, if I remember rightly, I don't think is running.
Ahona Mady, who was the student trustee who kind of kicked off who brought to light the allegations of racism, she's running for trustee as well in wards 8 and 14 for the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board. She's currently in second place, behind Becky Buck. Becky Buck is leading at 42.35% of the vote. Ahona Mehdi is distant second at 31.78%. I'm not sure where she's going to recoup that at the moment. Speaking of Ward 8, looks like John Paul Danko is sliding to a easy re-election right there. So that's always interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly he it doesn't entirely fit, you know, with the three councillors from the old council who didn't receive the kind of constant criticism that some of the other councillors did. The third, there was John Paul Danko and Narinda Nan and Maureen Wilson were the sort of three that many people felt, yeah, they're okay, they deserve re-election. John Paul Danko is more of a centrist politically than the other two, perhaps. I certainly don't take the argument that the other two are kind of these leftist neo-communists, that there was the nonsense being put out there by Larry Diani. Don't accept that perspective at all. They're progressive candidates. I recall John Paul Danko are progressive as well. I think he just leans somewhat more to the centre-ish kind of direction, but he seems like a perfectly competent, professional, respectable councillor, and his re-election seems to reflect that.
That's the thing. I think it's a little too early to say what the makeup of city council is going to be like. So
Well,
I
we're
don't
gonna have
think we can
some.
predict what's going to be like in the next 4 years.
I think actually Esther Pauls has pulled. So that's another incumbent has pulled ahead slightly in Ward 7. Um, so he may have been a bit preemptive there. But yeah, Meekan is in. I mean, it's going to be more progressive. It's going to be, you know, even if you take the probably the oldest new the oldest first time winner, if you like, is probably going to be Ted McMeekan. This is a guy who is a champion of. Now he was saying some things on Twitter the other day, somewhat surprised me in that but you know, this is a guy who's running in a ward in Flamborough, Dundas. So area rating is going to be a big issue in the new council. Whether area rate, basically, different taxes are paid by different wards, because if you live in an area which doesn't use Hamilton Transit very much, you don't pay as much into Hamilton Transit. And some people think this is fair, and some people think it's very either unfair or actually counterproductive. There's a debate to be had there. I'm not going to get into that right now. Technominican was taking the traditional perspective of a Dundas Flamborough councillor, which is we don't want to pay more for something we don't use. Ted has certainly been a champion of transit in his provincial career. I would hope he still is as a councillor. So I would expect him to be a progressive councillor. That seems to be in his blood, so to speak, from what I know of him. It's true that you then have to answer to the voters in your ward, right? You can't do things that are going to get you voted out. But
I'm just going to come back to Burlington here for a moment. Lisa Kearns has just tweeted out a simple 2-word message: "Thank you," followed by 2 hearts. I'm assuming we can conclude that she has been reelected to Burlington City Council, I assume. Again, Burlington is only reporting 4 of 29 polls so far, but they're apparently having issues with their vendors. But again, of those 4 polls reporting, Lisa Kearns has 75% of the vote. I say that's a pretty definitive lead for a council seat.
And then in the mayoral race, Marion Ward has 80%. There were 5 candidates running in the mayoral race. None of them candidates of any stature. I'm actually somewhat surprised that Jim Kerr, who is not someone who's known to me at all, is the one who's in second place with 2,376 votes. Anne Marsden has been, I think I used the phrase a number of times now, a frequent flyer in municipal elections for a decade or two. I would suggest, Anne, it's time to hang up your election boots or whatever, and let others take the fight on from now on. It's time to say other people can run in the next election.
Wait, you suck at it. Just right.
I was trying to be nice, Joel.
Now we're hearing 8 of 29 polls are report. 28 of 29 polls. Okay, so they just updated everything. So Marianne Mead Ward, it looks like she's going to win 77% of the vote, 77.9% of the vote. Yep. Kevin Galbraith, 63. He's going to win. Lisa Kearns, 72%. Rory Nissan, 64. Shauna Stilte at 47%. Paul Sherman at 58%. And so we're not looking, the city council is not changing in Burlington at all. For HDSB trustee, it appears that Matthew Diodati is leading or going to win in wards 1 and 2. Xingyi Zhang is going to win wards 3 and 6. With only 22.39% of the vote there. A decent second, I should say, is Steve Green at 19.53%. In Ward 4, Margot Shuttleworth at 50.35%. And then trustee Ward 5, Amy Collard at 80%, clearly. Trustee, HCDSB trustee. Um, Not much of a change there. Kirsten Kelly has beat out Vincent Ian Tomasi uh, with 59.5% of the vote. Trish Nichols Powell has beat David Cherry wards 3 and 6, and Brenda Agnew is reelected at 58.27. So basically, the three progressive candidates in HCDSB are
In
elected.
Burlington, yeah.
In Burlington elected. I find it's interesting. Vice versa in Oakville, the the campaign life coalition endorsed candidates were all elected.
The interesting thing to note in Burlington is that there was only 2 candidates in each race, whereas in Oakville, I believe there were handfuls of candidates. It's unusual to have so few candidates, in fact, in a Catholic school board race, and the in Burlington, it happens so often in races everywhere. The more candidates there are, certainly if you're going against an incumbent, the best thing you can have as an incumbent is 10 people running against you, because the vote just gets split each and every way. And again, another argument for ranked ballots, but that's good news. I mean, Vince Ian Tomasi was just a chaotic feature of the school board, destructive, arrogant, really just horrendous. He's gone. Good. I don't know anything about Trish Nichols' power, but I know David Cherry is a conservative. He ran in Ward 2 at the last election, and withdrew about halfway through. So he's somewhat of a frequent flyer as well. Anyway, good for Trish Nichols Powell. And Brenda Agnew has probably been, was the candidate who introduced and championed the pride flag agenda items on behalf of a student, and I think thoroughly deserves to be re-elected.
Oh, absolutely. It's a sorry, I'm just trying to get of course I closed my browser, and therefore I lost my update on results. Nuts.
I think we can probably call it for Stephen Del Duca and Vaughan. Still pretty close, but I don't think it's close enough now with 116 of 133 tabulators reporting. Yeah. Still a ways to go in Hamilton, though, I think, before we can be completely sure of the result there.
For sure.
Andrea Horvath is now ahead by about 800 votes, which amounts to less than a percentage point, so...
Yeah, I mean, I think Hamilton Mayor is just going to be a slugfest all the way down to the end. I'm just trying to do the math here on the Halton Catholic District School Board that we've covered pretty much throughout the year on the issues of pride flag and the ongoing problems there. I'm doing the math here, and I think the majority of the board will remain in progressive hands. Marvin Duarte was reelected in Milton. However, Emma Murphy, who is in the Campaign Life Coalition endorsement camp, she was elected. So that they kind of split the difference there. But basically, Janet O'Hearn, Sarnata, and Marvin Duarte, Brenda Agnew, Kirsten Kelly, and Trish Nichols Power versus the 3 candidates in Oakville and Emma Murphy. So basically, yeah, we're going to have, again, more 5-4 differences happening in at the board. I think what you're going to see at the ECDSP is a lot of continuation of what we saw in the this time around, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think we'd already called it, but Rob Burton has officially won in Oakville.
Yeah,
We did that already. Yeah, okay, we're repeating ourselves.
we're just repeating ourselves. Like we're not seeing a major turnover here. We're just right
Yeah.
now we are waiting for
It's Hamilton is the one that's left.
Hamilton is
Hamilton
the one
Mayor is the
yeah.
only one that's really left.
Um, yeah. So we're
I think the turnout could be quite good in Hamilton. That's a really good sign if that's the
our
case.
turnouts right now is only at 29% of the vote.
We've got 30%, but I think that will go up. We've got 189.
Oh, there it goes. Just went up to.
It's so that I think we could be heading towards high 30s, 40 in Hamilton, maybe. That would be pretty good. I mean, it's still appalling. But 40% in a municipal election is a really good result. So I think those turnout numbers we keep on seeing from obviously some of the cities are using the same software, that seems clear, and the turnout numbers go up as each poll is released. So it's not a real turnout number until the last poll is in.
I got an update or an email from Susanna Vukos Savljevic. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right, Suzanne. If I'm not, call me out. I beg your forgiveness. Manager of communications with City of Burlington. 28 out of 29 are posted now. To answer your question, no, the city is dedicated to running a fair and secure election for all Burlington's candidates and voters. The integrity of the city's voting equipment and process of validating each vote was not compromised in calculating the unofficial results of Burlington's 2022 municipal election. So they're standing by it, folks, and so are we.
Yeah, I don't doubt that for a minute. I just think they could have been a bit quicker.
It's a question that needs to be asked. We need. We need to secure.
That's what we're here to do, folks. And I think they could have been quicker on announcing that there were some problems. But you know,
criticism where I would agree they should have updated us in real time just to let us know that there's a bit of hiccup, because that's what happens when you don't inform people. People wonder like what's going on behind the scenes there.
Yeah. But I mean, I do appreciate that they actually
absolutely Suzanne,
when we asked a few times, they got back to us. So thank you very much for that,
Suzanne. Hats off to you, gold star. You did your job with spades. Bravo. But yeah, so basically what we're coming down to now is waiting on Hamilton, and I'm still waiting for Vaughan. I'm still waiting to see what the final results are. I do agree. Stephen Del Duca seems to be pulling away handily. Although it's interesting, up in Vaughan, the turnout is only 26.5%. That is abysmal. That is
below 30 is really bad. Below 30 is really bad. Above 40 is very good. I mean, that's the kind of numbers you're dealing with in municipal races.
Here's a question. Going way back into the archives here, rolling back to like episode 10 or something. We had on Jesse Helmer from London.
You're seeing the same tweet I am.
Oh, okay. I'm not actually looking at Twitter. I'm just going off my own mind.
Oh no, I'm looking at a tweet from him right now.
So, folks, we are. If you go back in the back catalog, we did an episode with Jesse Helmer, who is a former councillor in the city of London, because London was the only city in Ontario that did a ranked ballot, not this election, but the election previous. It was on the table for a number of municipalities, including Burlington, if I'm not mistaken, recently to debate whether or not they were going to switch over. Our illustrious Premier Doug Ford, for arbitrary reasons, just said, nope, we're not doing that anymore. I'm taking it off the table, and London had to go back to first past the post. I bring it up just because I wonder
Well, I'll
I
tell you
wonder
what
what's.
Jesse's saying. In
Oh,
terms of his comment is the results are sooner but not better under first past the post rather than ranked ballots because that's his take on the results this time. I don't know what those are. I'm just taking a look right now, and I can't say I know um, London politics well enough to make any real comment. Um, in the mayoral race, the incumbent, whose name escapes me for the moment, was not running again. Josh Morgan has won 66% of the vote. And Jesse Helmer was not running again
okay.
either.
My
Um,
the reason why I brought it up though was I we're talking about the turnout. I wonder if we brought in like the ranked ballot idea um to would like, if people knew that it's not an either or proposition. You look at like looking at Hamilton here, you have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine candidates running. You could easily do a ranked ballot on this, and we'd have a far better analogy. Like right now, whoever's winning isn't 60, roughly 60% of the city didn't vote for you. Well, I mean, there's one neo-Nazi running, so he's got about half 0.5% of the votes. You can scratch his people. I'm not sure anybody would want that, but 55.5% of the city didn't vote for you. That's a huge margin to have to say, "Oh, I have a mandate to lead the people." No, you don't. And Keaton Loomis or Andrea Horvath, whoever ends up winning this, can I don't. They're not going to get past 50% of the vote. You know, are we gonna like, are we leading ourselves? And then you look at a lot of these the ward seats. We don't. I'm not rarely do we see anybody go past 50%. Most are winning with 30, 28, 30% of the votes cast in a ward.
well, many do certainly, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's but like that's not a mandate to say I elect you're
No.
elected, you represent me at
So
the
yeah,
council table.
so in London, Ontario, at the last election, every single person who won with the support of more than 50% of the people who lived in that ward, in one way or another. They may have been a second choice, but they still had the support. Um, that's the amazing thing. Um, I don't know any of the people running. Can't really comment. I could say that the turnout doesn't look great. I don't think the turnout was stellar 4 years ago, but I think it was respectable. The Just looking at their turnout now, I think they'll be below 30%. So in the bad turnout zone, like even more bad turnout zone. So I don't know. I mean, I know that, and the reason that really quality candidates like Jesse Helmer are not running is because they can't afford to run in a city like London, um, and earn pennies for being a councillor,
Hmm.
basically a full time job. Um, they
Well,
he's going to go and earn money doing something else because he's
my
someone who can earn money and has to. He's got a
my
young family and goodness
my
knows what. You
brother
know?
my brother and my sister-in-law live in London, and they describe their municipal election as like conservatism on steroids. Like everybody wants these fantastic items. They say, okay, well, how much are we willing to spend for it? And it's like, well, no, I want it for free. Well, no, you don't get a transit system and not have to pay money for it. It's not that's not how it works.
Yeah,
But
and there
I
was
I
some really good things coming out of London over the last 4 years, in terms of things like transit and
mhm.
a visible minority candidate winning for the first time who said that she would have not have run if it were not for ranked ballots. And I don't know if she ran again, and if she did, I don't know if she's winning. I unfortunately can't tell you, but yeah, it's tragedy that happened. Um,
I just wonder, if we include stuff like that. I'm a big proponent of ranked ballots. I think it does a good way to encourage civility in the debates. because our elections don't turn into a zero-sum game. You have to be likable enough to say, okay, I might not have your vote, but can I have your second choice, right? And you naturally have to campaign on a likability, or just you can stick to your guns, you can stick to your principles. That's the thing. People know what your principles are because you know this is something I'm not budging on, but I'm willing to work on these other items for you. And I think people would respect that. I'm curious to see what I mean, under our current provincial government, that's not coming back, which is too bad. I would really like to see that come forward. I think here in Hamilton, it would have been a lot more interesting to see how how the mayorship would have worked out. Well, it's because right now, Andrea Horvath and Keenan Loomis are leading, but there's not I don't see a clear mandate of they have the will of the people behind them. And the same goes with federal elections. Like, you know, liberals, conservatives, they only win with 35 or 40% of the vote. That's not a clear mandate of we want you to lead us. It's just,
well, we have the technology to make sure that every elected person has the support, maybe not the complete support or the ambiguous support, but the support of 50% of people who cast votes. We have the technology, so why on earth would we not want to use that? To say you can't be elected unless you can get 50% of people to support you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't, you know, you don't have to have force, you know, there are ways and means of doing that. Ranked ballots in this kind of election is undoubtedly the way to go. You know, it works well, particularly with a non-partisan system, and yeah, I mean, it would be. I mean, if you think of the trustee races where you know, special interests. I mean, really, the special interest of all special interests, which is the anti-abortion lobby,
yep.
Trying to take over school trustee races. They can only do that because of first past the post, where they don't need 50% of voters. They need an ignorant electorate who isn't really paying attention, and they need a bunch of candidates.
Look at the Halton District School Board that we just talked about, Ward 3 and 4. Zhang Zhang, who is, from all things that we've seen, is an ardent pro-life or anti-abortion candidate who endorsed by Campaign Life and whatnot. They won with only 20% of the vote. I mean, that is clearly, you can't say that the people in wards 3 and 6 or whatever are eager to send them to represent them at the school board. The other candidates who came in close second easily were just shy of maybe 2 or 3%. So clearly, there's a lot of people who say, no, I would like a second choice there. They might, you know, I think you would have seen that vote, that race, be a lot more interesting and a lot more dynamic than what we got. Because here's the thing: so people who would vote for a candidate like Zhang, who's very much an ardent right-wing supporter, they don't really have a B plan. There's not, you know, anyone else running who is a pro-trans rights or pro-choice or any of those things. Like, it's hard to vote for. You know, it's a compromise with your values. So you'd see all of a sudden that candidate drop to the bottom real fast.
I mean, I think my impressions of Mr. Zhang from 4 years ago. I've had no dealings with him since. Didn't really have any dealings with him at the time. He just seemed like a really low quality candidate. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he has sought out the Campaign Life Coalition endorsement or the anti-woke people's endorsement. He may not have sought it out but he has it whether he wants it or not.
He didn't refute it. He didn't say, no, get me off your list.
No.
I don't want to be
I
associated with you.
My guess would be that if he becomes a trustee, he will be a very bad trustee. He won't be. My guess would be, could be wrong, he would not be a disruptive entity in the sort of Ian Tomasi, Tim O'Brien mold. I think he would just be a crummy trustee, and that's a real shame. Yeah, what you gonna do? I think he's just someone who wants to be a politician for no particularly good reason, and he's far from alone in that. Here's hoping I'm proved wrong about everything, but he must have said something sufficiently pro-life for him to get that endorsement in the first place, and that just is crummy right there,
These races are things that people need to keep an eye on, for the simple fact that there are people who want. I mean, this might seem hyperbolic, and this might seem, you might shake your head and say, "Geez, Joel, you're getting into the tinfoil conspiracy hat theory here." But these people really do not care about democracy. They don't care about a nuanced debate about the issues. They don't care about your point of view, and there is no middle ground. There's no point where you can sit there and say, "Okay, you know what? I'll compromise with you on this matter," because you compromise an inch of your beliefs or your political will to achieve a greater good, they take everything. And this is part of it. It's an infiltration of school boards because they are anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ. They want to do real harm to kids who are in that stage of their life, who are trying to figure out their own sexuality, their own place in the world, and instead of being the nurturing, responsible voice that we'd hope that they would be, or that they want to destroy them. They want to put them into a box that these kids don't fit into. They want to force them into it and nail the box shut and beat them until they are conform to how they want them to live. And I know this sounds violent and it sounds extreme, but these are the times we live. Like, we've seen what happens in the States. This is what happens in the States. It's a cutting of education resources. It's harmful policies that don't educate or help kids. They harm them. They alienate them. They drive them to things like suicide. They drive them to self-harm, and that's not what we want our schools to be. Whether you're Catholic or public, I'm betting that if you're listening to this podcast or listening to this live stream, you don't want our schools to be like that. Not just Halton, but York, Peel, Hamilton, Wentworth, all of that. But these people want to do that great harm. They don't have the numbers to do it. So they count on people not showing up to these small municipal races to try and take them over, and then just push. They can't get what they want. They kick over the table, like what we saw in the Halton Catholic District School Board. If I can't get my way, then I'll kick over the table and I'll throw a fit until, just to stop you from getting, from making our schools a fairer and safer place to work. I'm done.
Yeah, well, I endorse that message. No, I mean, I can't. I mean, this podcast has a problem. It's that the two of us agree ourselves to death. However, yeah, you're damn right. They are. We have the right to religious expression in this country and in democratic countries. I happen to be an atheist. That's by the way. I would defend people's right to religious expression. What you don't have is the right to use the tools of democracy to further an agenda of forcing a specific, narrow religious doctrine on children, and trying to use the lowest electoral level we have in this country, which is school trustee, is a way to get the careers of poisonous assholes going. I mean, thankfully, enough people seem to be paying attention to what Vince Iantomissi was up to that he got nowhere. Enough people don't give a damn about Tim O'Brien that he got nowhere. But that message wasn't clear enough. I mean, Alex Power in Oakville, we had Alex Power on the podcast. She's a doctor, extremely intelligent, extremely articulate. Didn't do very well in the vote, and maybe down to sort of inexperience about how to run an election. Although, I mean, it's trustee races are difficult unless you've got the kind of money backing that you can get from the campaign life thing to pay for your leaflets or whatever. Getting volunteers at trustee level is bloody impossible, because it's just people aren't that excited about it. But it's being used as this Trojan horse of assholes. I can't use any other language than that. To get the worst kind of people into the electoral system. And, they have higher ambitions than school trustees. It's just that's the soft target that they're going for right now. We need to pay better attention to it. And maybe in 4 years' time, we do a better job of really...
We've tried to, because nobody else
telling people
covers...
what's going on.
Nobody covers... What we saw happening in the HCDSB was a small front on the culture wars that these folks want to wage on the rest of us. This isn't. That's one of the reasons why we formed this podcast, because nobody was analyzing this content in detail. Nobody was talking about or really covering these the meetings that were just devolve into chaos and rhetoric and needless points of order and yelling over people and forcing binary students to weep because they can't be spoken to properly. It's just unconscionable, and it's something that we're proud that we were able to cover it. We're proud to be able to shine light on it. We hope that we educated some folks on what was going on, and we hope that some of you listening, you made your choice based on what we reported. We're very humbled to hear that we helped influence your vote that way. Maybe we influenced your vote the other way. I don't know.
We didn't endorse anybody before election day. We didn't.
We made a point not to. We made it.
Yeah.
You and I had that discussion off camera. We said, "Are we going to endorse anyone?" And we both said, "No," because we can't really do it. But also, that's not the idea of endorsing candidates is a tired old carpetbagger scheme. I'd rather we talk about the policy, and if somebody doesn't want to talk policy, somebody doesn't want to talk the consequences of things that they want to enact, then we shouldn't vote for them. We shouldn't have them on. And I'd rather call somebody up based on that than, I think that, because they're a liberal, because they're an NDP, because of whatever.
Well, yeah, and I think with every race and every candidate, we've called out things that are good and we've called out things that are bad where we think they're deserved, regardless of anything. I mean, just taking the Hamilton race as an example, all three candidates did some slightly knuckleheaded things at various points. And I think we're probably at the point where we're going to have to call that for Andrea Horvath. I mean, she's about 1,100 votes ahead now.
Only 1% ahead.
Still only 1%. Yeah, it's been a steady 1% though, but I don't know.
We still have so many polls to go. I'm not
ready to call that one.
I'm not. My gut's telling me no. I don't. Yeah.
I bow to your greater wisdom, Joel. I think we are going to have to call Del Duca the winner.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say.
In fact, pretty much all the votes are in there. I think it's done for Del Duca. Yeah, very, very mixed feelings about that one. Actually, not even that mixed, to be honest. I think that's a shame. I would have rather see the other person win. I mean, now that the race is over, I'm kind of being fairly open about how I feel about a lot of these people. I think that's kind of different. It's not putting your finger on the scale or whatever. And ultimately, Andrea Grabentz in the race for the Halton Regional Chair, just looking at that again, yeah, she's well behind Jay McKenna, but not in the complete. I mean, really, Jay McKenna's result is terrible, which I always thought it would be. I just started to doubt that when I saw how many lawn signs she had on the sidewalks everywhere. There's a rumor, whether it's true or not, that Gary Carr pretty much ran only because Jay McKenna was running. And bear in mind, they're both conservatives, or spent long times as conservative members. I hope Jay McKenna hangs it up now and just calls it a day on her political career. It's been a real bore from beginning to end.
We've said this before. Rarely do I think I have an issue with candidates jumping down with no clear reason in the municipal. I always like to think you run up, right? Like you might run for mayor with the intention of, well, I want to run to be the MPP or MP someday, and that's kind of how I always viewed it should go. You should be running to be move up the ladder, because I thought my gut tells me when the candidate loses at a provincial or federal level, so I'm going to run for city council. I was like, no, it's not a place to go slumming. It's not a place to go for a vacation. Where were your thoughts on these issues previously? And these things. Although right now I might be eating my words because Andrea Horvath is looking like she's in the lead. Stephen Del Duco won barely.
It's close in Hamilton, but it's now been a very steady lead for about half an hour. 200 polls in of 246. Is it possible that there are polls outstanding where Andrea Horvath won't get any votes at all? It's definitely possible. I'm starting to wonder if it's going to happen, though.
I am too. I think I'm seeing Andrea Horvath's lead starting to widen there. She's starting to pull ahead.
There are a bunch of new councillors in Hamilton who I know nothing about. In Ward 4, there was a crowd of people running. Tammy Huang, I know nothing about whatsoever, has won with 2,000 votes and 22% of the voters. So that's very much I think Alex Johnson was also running there. I believe she may have been a trustee. I'm not sure. Anyway, she came third. Walter Furlan in Ward 3, I mean, despite all the very noisy support he was getting from various quarters, really didn't come close to winning. I've heard good things about Matt Francis. I'm not sure. I can't really do it. But anyway, he's comfortably won in his ward. And I think most of the other ones are. Looks like Esther Pauls has been returned again. John Paul Danko won easily. Just going for the ones that were close last time. Jeff Beattie, who again I have to admit I know nothing about, has won in Ward 10. So it isn't a very different councillor. There aren't many faces back from the previous council. Not many at all. And probably Tom Jackson is the only one who's, of the kind of notorious crew, is back. It's Alex Wilson. I've heard some good things about, I think, and they have beaten Arlene van der Beek relatively comfortably. Arlene van der Beek was the incumbent. And I think we're gonna, it's only 100 votes, but I suspect all the polls may be in there that Mike Spadafora has beaten out Kojo Damptey in Ward 14.
Yeah, I kind of have that up on my screen. I don't think it's budged for the last
Yeah.
little while. So I think
So
all the
suspect that's done and dusted. And Ted Mimikin, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Ted Mimikin has won in Ward 15 for sure.
There's only 40 polls left to go in Hamilton. I right now I think the races see, are there any in those 40 polls, are there any place are there any votes for Keenan Loomis to pick up? I mean, the thing is I don't know where those polls are.
Yeah, we don't know which polls have returned. I mean, you know, if they were all suburban rural polls,
Yeah.
which they may be for all we know, you might say, well, they might lean more towards some people at least seem to perceive Keenan Loomis as more of the centrist. I'm not actually sure if that's true or not. He's run on a fairly progressive agenda. I'm not really sure those kind of left-right things. I mean, it's just the background with the Chamber of Commerce and, you know, whatever. So I'm not sure that kind of left-right thing means much, but it may mean something in some of the polls.
I mean, I'll be honest. I think the left-right divide is antiquated at all levels these days. I'll be honest. I think it's more I would argue libertarian versus authoritarian these days. The left-right deals more with economics. I think we're actually more in a fight over cultural and social norms than we are about economics these days. My editorial piece of the night. I was just flashing between again Hamilton and Vaughan. There's 2 polls left in Vaughan. For what it's worth, I doubt Sandra Young Rocco is going to find the necessary votes, to sneak up there. But it's
No.
Still waiting to see. I mean, if you're still listening to us, folks, I appreciate you sticking around till 11 o'clock at the night, waiting to hear on Hamilton's polls, mostly because, again, the Hamilton city clerk screwed up big time. And we're stuck pulling in overtime.
Yeah. Well, we're 3.25 hours in, and I think the electoral politics in Ontario has finally managed to shut you and me up.
Oh, I never thought the day would happen.
Yeah, I know. 2 most verbose men in Ontario. I'm getting tired. I don't know. I it's really two results left that are worth watching. Mayor of Hamilton, Mayor of Vaughan. I think I'm
kind of want to say, like, Vaughan, like, what's taking those last 2 polls? What's taking so long to get them in?
I mean, they could be 2 tower blocks or senior centres or something, and with 10 votes each. You know, for all we know.
Can't have a phone call. Like, just call in the numbers. We're good to go.
Yeah. Maybe they're postal votes. I mean, postal votes tend to be done first, don't they? I think.
Well, yeah. As soon as the polls close, you have somebody go in and crack them open and start counting. I don't know what the hiccup is. We're still waiting to hear. We still have about 40 or with 37 polls left in Hamilton. I would love if they just notify like where the polls were. Um, yeah,
I think our audience of millions might be able to cope with a situation in which we call it for the night,
I think so.
because I think Hamilton's probably done. If we're wrong, we apologise, but I suspect our noble listeners can cope with that until tomorrow. But I think we can say that Andrea Horvath is almost definitely going to be the mayor of Hamilton, and I think we can even more confidently say that
Yeah,
Stephen Del Duca is going to be mayor of Vaughan. It's going to be a new council for Hamilton. I think we knew it was going to be a big difference at the start of the night. We know it's going to be a big difference now. I think both Andrea Horvath and Keenan Loomis can be very happy with their campaigns. I think Keenan Loomis has done enough to warrant another kick at the can at some other level of government, or to run for mayor again in the future. Who knows? But it seems to me he ran a very creditable campaign, clean campaign, fair campaign, one with a whole bunch of policies.
I would I would dare say if anyone of the Liberal Party is listening to me right now, I would dare say I'd be, or even the Ontario NDP, I'd be reaching out to him to recruit him to your cause, because I think, like, looking at these numbers, he has credibility, he has a support backing that you could definitely get him to run and possibly, and I think win in Hamilton, and maybe actually build a winning coalition to win some seats in the greater Hamilton area.
Yeah, and I have no particular what the Liberal Party in Hamilton does. Their problem, not my concern anymore.
Hmm.
And I don't really care. As I always say, I want progressives to win. I got into politics to support progressives against conservatives and to have progressive governments. Where I lived, that was the Liberals. That's how I got there, and I have no reason to regret doing that. Um, but I saw that in a number of places, the Liberal Party is being torn apart by people who I don't believe were progressive at all. I don't believe were competent. And ultimately, I believe there should be more parties, not fewer parties. I'm a supporter of electoral reform for that reason. We shouldn't be forced into these NDP, liberal, whatever kind of camps,
Hmm.
because the world's not that simple anymore. So, yeah, I don't know what party Keenan Loomis fits into because of the Chamber of Commerce thing. Probably people are assuming one way, which I don't really, I don't care. Whatever. Uh, he ran a good campaign. I think he has a political future. I hope he does that. Andrea Horvath ran basically a fine campaign too. I found it disappointing at times, but um, I think it's good news in most. I think it's entirely good news that there is a new mayor of Hamilton who is a woman, who is a very different kind of politician from what we've had in recent history in Hamilton. That she's going to be heading up a council that is very different, which has some really stellar candidates who've either been elected for the first time or who are coming back. There are some old faces of quality who are coming back. There's some old faces of less quality who are still around, but not many. So I think Horvath will have the wherewithal to get stuff done. We'll have a council who'll be willing to work with her to do some interesting things, and hopefully that's really good news for the city of Hamilton.
She's
Um,
got she Here's the thing. She now has to prove that she she has what it takes to lead. She did, people of Ontario didn't send her to Queen's Park as the premier. she now has to show what we missed out on by her being mayor of Hamilton. Um, it's how I view this. I know we've said, and here's the thing. Doug Ford has talked about past. He's basically said that Hamilton will be getting the strong mayor's powers post this election, whenever that happens. Who knows? Um, what would that look like for Andrew Horvath? I mean, does Andrew Horvath essentially want to become a Doug Ford stooge? I doubt it, but I'm also thinking that's a different mayorship. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be curious to see what she's looking to. Where are we going to look push back on? This is the. It's going to be interesting what the next mayor, next 4 years, going to look like. Most because the Doug Ford has indicated he is willing to use ministerial zoning orders to push for middle density. Why he doesn't just pass on doing that, I don't know, but he wants to do this. We know that he is going to be pushing back down the pipe, my way or the highway legislation. Is Andrea Horvath going to be return to her role as an opposition leader for the municipalities? Because there'll be a lot of municipalities who will be objecting to it. But she will be have Doug Ford strong mayor's powers. What will that do for her mayorship in Hamilton? And will she step up to become sort of like a regional leader? Because I look at the state in Queen's Park. Doug Ford is getting away with the sketchiest of stuff right now because there's no leader of the opposition. There's no leader in the Liberal Party. There's nobody standing up saying, no, enough's enough. You can't do it. He's getting away with it all.
We just had an announcement basically gutting the remaining powers of the environmental protection agencies. You might as well just take a torch and set them on fire. There's nothing left, guys. There were some good things announced, I believe, in last week with regard to housing policy, but the attack on the environmental protection agencies goes ahead. Yeah, and there's no opposition. This is like going without so much as a buy your leave.
Andrew Horvath is going to have to step up because Lord knows Stephen Del Duca basically just said, I'll be conservative light. I'll be a light blue conservative up in Vaughan. It's going to be up on Andrew Horvath to stand up for cities in the 905 to say, no, we don't want that. Will she do it if she's being given Doug Ford's strong mayor's powers? We shall see. We'll wait and see. Right now, Andrea Horvath is at 41.72% of the vote, followed by Keenan Loomis at 40.51, with only about what do we got here? About 33 left to go. 33 polls left to go, I think.
I'm going to call it barring a miracle. Those final 10 polls might take another 3 hours to come in. I think it's not 100% certain, but I'm fairly confident Andrea Horvath will be the next mayor of Hamilton. It's been a good race, and there's a lot of positives for Hamilton coming out of it.
You know what? I'm just looking forward to the fact that we don't have to do these live casts for another 4 years.
For a couple of years.
No more elections, folks.
Thank you to everybody who joined us.
Yep.
We had a small but mighty following, and I think overall there's a lot of good things happening. Andrea Horvath, a team of Andrea Horvath, Marianne Mead Ward, Rob Burton, those three alone could get a lot done together if they put their minds to it. We've never seen it before, but the strong mayor powers are a poison chalice. It's not a strong mayor power. It's a puppet power, basically. It's another way of undermining the cities. We need the cities to start working together, to cooperate, to get things done. And Horvath and Mead Ward and Burton, to pick just three, could really move mountains if they wanted to.
All right. They're calling it an end for that, folks. Thank you very much. We'll be back on Thursday for our weekly episode. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We'd love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.